Is it this song?
I'm sure.
Okay, well that's where the track splits then.
Yes, that's where the.
So I have that.
You won't hear this song.
So again, verbatim, our hit. This is our hit. This next song is our hit. You won't hear this song anywhere but in your goddamn car, at home, or on this fucking stage, and that's the way it should be. Ladies and gentlemen, Vinnie Paul on the drums.
Please start that song.
Well, okay, so I listened to that part like 10 times in a row, and I think he says, please, cha-cha-cha. That's what I wrote down. I wrote sick next to it because I don't know for sure. But that is what I heard. That's all I can comprehend from it.
Is there a video recording of this too?
No.
There's not, unfortunately.
For some reason, I thought there was. I don't know why I
Because
thought there was.
Minji talks about it in the middle of fucking Walk, which I don't like the song Walk, but
right. He says they're filming for the goddamn home
we're
video.
filming for the goddamn live home video.
Oh, he got confused. Film, record, what's the difference?
My favorite part of that rant is how he's like, Episode 23, recorded March 18th, 2022. I'm really excited to have both of y'all here because these are two of my favorite people. And we get to talk about like one of my favorite, favorite bands, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. So
I'm happy to have Harrison here because now we get to see how talking over each other is really going to work.
Yeah,
Who
because
gets mad first?
well, yeah, because you and I have been friends for like 25 years, and we have this rhythm where where like podcast or no, I call you up every 2 to 3 weeks and just tell you everything I've been thinking about for 2 hours or so.
That happens.
Yeah, and I don't do that to him because I don't trust him to stay my friend.
You're like that meme of like the soldier who's like hovering over the child and there's all these bullets hitting his back so the child doesn't have to deal with it. I'm the child.
Yeah, I
and
know
you're
what you
the
mean.
soldier with all the bullets in your back. And then it's actually just Richard's words.
Oh wow, too real.
Yeah, I'm not gonna contest that. It is what it is. It is what it is. But
You should start recording those.
Well, that's
the premise.
actually turns out.
But yeah, so we thought it would be cool because we've already done 2 episodes on Pantera, so we thought it'd be cool to throw a third one, to throw you in here to, mix it up because you're a little younger than us. And so you'll have a different perspective on all that.
Yeah.
But
How old are you?
35.
Oh, not that much.
Just
younger.
turned 35.
Okay.
In February.
yeah.
You're almost as old as we are.
But I think importantly, the minor difference in age by a few years, right? What, 38, 39?
38.
38. 3 to 4 years, I feel like is a big difference in Pantera time because of the era and the age that we would have been at. Because you guys would have been way more mature than me in like the glory days of Pantera, I feel like. At least in my mind, that was the case.
Right. So I feel like that's a really good point of it because something I've always really found fascinating about talking to you and our mutual friend Jacob is how different y'all's experience with like Slipknot is than mine. Because, and I mean, just that few years, right?
Yeah.
Because I saw Slipknot like in '99 on stage at Ozfest, and I was already into death metal and I was already into black metal and all that sort of stuff. So like I already had Morbid Angel records,
Right.
I already had Emperor records. I already knew what grindcore was, So when I saw Slipknot, it was like, oh, well, these guys listen to Pantera and Metallica and Korn and all that other shit, all that crazy extreme stuff.
You were able to pick that through line out.
Yeah,
Sort of see that.
right. And it made me feel really seen. Like, oh, these fucking weirdos listen to the same stuff I listen to, which just really affected how closely I bonded and sort of became a lifetime ride or die fan of theirs. And I got to like meet Joey, and he was just super cool and gracious that day and all sorts of stuff like that,
All right.
But when you first heard Slipknot, they were already on like album 3, right?
I actually remember. I'm pretty sure I remember when Iowa came out.
Okay.
And we were already listening to them.
That's right. That's right.
But it was different because where you saw Slipknot as a culmination of influences that you were already aware of in the extreme metal genre or universe. I just saw them as the logical next step in extreme progression from what I had been listening to before then, which was like Korn and whatever. And so I wasn't really very closely, intimately aware of like death metal or Morbid Angel or whatever, death, right?
Right.
And so when I heard Slipknot, it was just like, for me, it was always this like stepping up of extremity or extremeness, whatever you want to call it.
Ratcheting, I think
yeah,
you
exactly.
described it as.
Yeah,
once.
it's like once you ratchet up the extreme metal, you know, like you just can't go back, you know, in theory.
Right.
And then you realize that, you know, extreme is in the eye of the beholder, and there's different types of extreme, and it's like blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so Slipknot for me wasn't like a, oh wow, these cool guys from Iowa are like pulling together all these extreme influences and making it like almost mainstream, if not mainstream. I didn't see it that way. I saw it as like, these guys are like the heaviest thing I've ever heard in my life. They're the most extreme thing that's ever been made. And I don't know how you could top this. And then like, I think the next day I heard Nile and I was like, oh, never mind. But to me, it was like just a progression. It wasn't like a mosaic of extreme, you know?
So that's actually much closer to my experience.
Okay.
Because I didn't have your
my metallic acumen.
Yeah. I was trying to make like a painting palette reference there, but we'll go with that. I didn't have the background in extreme metal and stuff that you had. Whereas to me, and I think it also had to do with the people who I was hanging out with predominantly also felt that exact same way, which was like, we listened to alternative, and then here's this, which incorporates hip hop, which we're also sort of into, and that naturally leads us into Slipknot's world, and like techno is becoming a thing at that point.
Right. Yeah, big techno energy and all of their stuff.
Yeah.
you
So
know?
for me, it was also at that time much more like, this is some of the most extreme shit I've ever heard. I didn't necessarily know, or I wasn't able to pick out where all it came from. You know?
Right.
So I can see both sides. Of this
Yeah,
I'm both siding it, is what I'm saying.
So you were listening to Korn before that, and
Yeah,
and
I
like,
think
what
so.
else?
I think so. I mean, I was definitely a big fan of alternative rock, and then that kind of gave way to nu metal. And like, I don't know if we want to go down memory lane necessarily,
You
but
know,
like
I think this is good.
it's a really interesting dynamic for me, because actually a lot of musical influence that I had, not having brothers or sisters or like people that were like my age that I lived with much, was my stepsisters and my stepbrother, who my dad remarried when I was like 7, and his wife, my stepmom, had 3 kids, and before they were married, but they were like roughly my age and a little bit older, and so I would see them summers and winters, you know, when I would go visit my dad. And my stepbrother was my same age, and it was really funny because he got into Korn and like nu metal and like Limp Bizkit before me. And if you knew us, you would think that was really silly, because he's just not like a metal guy or like a hard rock guy. He just happened to get into that. I don't know if it was peer pressure or something, but he was like, yeah, Life is Peachy is the shit. And I was like, this is too scary for me. It's too scary. Life is Peachy is too scary, John, but thank you for the recommendation. I'm not ready for this.
Dude, you know that's so I remember buying the first Korn record and the first White Zombie record at the same time. Like I stayed home from school sick, and my mom like took me to the mall or something. We watched like Birdcage in the theater at San Jacinto Mall. But I might be mixing up two things, but whatever. But I got those 2 records also, and I remember getting home because I knew Chutes and Ladders and Blind, because they were on like a VHS of MTV late night videos my aunt had sent me because I didn't have MTV. And I remember when it got to Ball Tongue, I had to turn it off.
Yeah, man.
Like
That's
I
intense.
literally had to. I was like, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. Give me Black Sunshine again, please. I can't deal with Ball Tongue. So yeah.
So I think Korn for me was one of the gateway heavier bands that I was exposed to, and they ended up being one of the ones that I got really into, you know, like in middle school and stuff.
How into Metallica were you at this point?
I think by that point I was already into. Well, I think I was into them. I was definitely into them by the time I had heard Korn, and I distinctly remember buying like Ride the Lightning. I was in Denver actually at the time visiting my stepmom's family, and I remember walking to like the record store, buying a CD, and then going and sitting on the couch and listening to it in my Discman. And just kind of like just having an out of body experience with how incredible it was, you know.
Fuck yeah.
And I think it was probably around that same time. So I knew I was into metal, and I was into like, like Metallica type metal and hard rock was still
Right.
like very melodic, and like Korn was very like angular and like amelodic and at times and things like, and it was just not, I was not ready for it at that point.
Sure. Right.
Originally.
Right.
And then eventually I did, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's Korn is a different kind of intensity.
It's really funny because the path you described there is the same path that my dad ended up taking with Korn.
Nice.
Which was that.
I like this guy.
Yeah, right. You guys will get along. So at some point, it was my birthday for some year, maybe like 97 or so, 96, 97, and he took me to Soundwaves in Houston somewhere, like on Westheimer or wherever it was.
Montrose.
Montrose? Okay. It's been like 25 years.
Poser. You probably didn't even buy a surfboard there. There probably was one on Westheimer at some point, shit.
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no,
Whatever.
But anyway, we went to Soundwaves, and he was like, you can pick out like 2 albums to buy. And I got Smash, Offspring,
Nice.
and the first Korn album. And when he looked at the cover of the first Korn album, he was like, I don't know about this one. And then the back cover, he was like, I really don't know about this one. Because it's like some dark shit, right? For like a, whatever I was at the time, 12, 13-year-old kid.
Right.
But nonetheless, he was like, if that's what you want, I'll get it for you. Because I'm not going to stop you from listening to the music you want to listen to.
Cool dad alert.
So he wasn't too into it when the first time he heard it. But after a while, I went over to his place and he was just playing it of his own volition. Like he had gone and bought it. And then his kids, who were 3, 4 at the time, were dancing to it, and they grew up loving that shit. So
awesome.
It was really cool. Yeah,
That's wild. Yeah, I mean, a bit of context. His dad and his brothers gave him Pantera and Primus CDs, and he was 9 or 10.
Oh, nice.
Or
yeah,
some
huge gateway for this type
That's
of music
amazing.
for me.
That's
So
amazing.
I was lucky. Yeah.
That's a big. It seems like when we were sort of really unpacking because we're the same age, grew up in the same town, and the real big hinge points in our early musical development seem to be his dad and his uncles and his access to MTV.
Yes.
Those seem to be the two
yeah, those
big,
Interesting. Okay.
big giant inflection points, because I didn't have that. So there was so much I wasn't exposed to because of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that I feel like you could tell almost the entire. I've told you this spiel before in some sense, but I feel like there's a big, between Metallica, Pantera, Korn, and Slipknot, you sort of can, those are quadrants on which you can place the emotional tone of really any metal band almost. I feel, because Metallica is very kind of stoic,
Cerebral.
yeah, we're gonna sing about fucked up things, but I'm not necessarily.
There's
fucked
a
up.
distance from the
Right.
object. Yeah.
We're observing it, and reporting.
Yeah.
Right. And then Pantera is a little bit more oh yeah, that dude will beat me up,
Yeah, it's very true and raw to the person, but it's not about anything deep, really. I guess I don't know what the right word. It's very emotional, but not in a useful way.
I think you summed up our conversation. So
that was our vulgar.
So the first,
nice.
yeah, that episode was 2.5 hours long, and I think you summed it up in about 10 words.
Do you guys get into the lyrics when you talk about Pantera or just any music? I mean, I guess you probably should.
More so you, but yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. It depends on the band, really.
Yeah.
But with Pantera, yeah, because I care a lot about lyrics.
Did you mean when we were discussing it, or when
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shit got weird.
I don't on my personal listens typically. I don't typically get too much into lyrics generally.
Yeah.
But for this, I paid more attention to it because I knew it would come up.
Yeah, and so, and I guess but then the thing, so in Pantera, if we talk about that arc, right, those 4, Pantera is angry, but it's a lot more volatile in how it presents, and it's a little more dangerous than Metallica is. It's not as much. It's not as distant, but it's not really vulnerable. It is in a way, but still in a very tough guy way.
Yeah.
And then Korn is so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Just like, I am not fucking okay.
To a fault.
Yeah, yeah,
And-
yeah. Too vulnerable. Yeah.
And then Slipknot puts it all together.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Because you have that sort of that danger, that like unsafe, element with Slipknot, but you also have that anger and intensity that you don't quite have that same kind of anger and intensity with Korn, but you also have the vulnerability that you have in Korn.
You feel like Slipknot might kill you, but they don't dislike you. But you can see why they're like that also. It all coalesces into these 9 dudes you kind of want to hang out with but are really scared of.
Right, yeah. And like I've thought like, man, it'd be so cool to hang out with Pantera, or I'd like to meet the guys in Metallica, or I bet I'd feel some kinship with the guys in Slipknot. And I've never thought that I ever wanted to hang out with anybody in Korn.
Oh man, but they're from Bakersfield, so
I don't know. That doesn't mean anything to me.
yeah, it shouldn't.
You're damn right it doesn't.
No, we went to Bakersfield. Amanda and I went to Bakersfield a few years ago because she was working out there for a large oil and gas company. And Bakersfield is like basically just known for oil and gas and corn. That's what they're known for.
Oh, okay.
So it's like Bakersfield is like a desert kind of dusty, like almost like a Texas kind of town. Like it's real big in country music, actually. It's got a really cool country music history, actually.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty cool like old honky tonks and like dive bars there, but it's kind of a shitty place. I'm
That's
not gonna
really
lie.
funny because I say that now, right? But whenever that Korn VHS Who Then Now came out,
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how wrapped up you got in this.
I watched a lot of that video, but that's about it.
Well, me and Jeremy and Josh just basically would try to dress like them and try to reenact pretty much everything in that video.
Oh wow.
It was a Bible of instructions of being,
Like style and sort of
everything.
attitude.
This is how you talk to each other.
Wow.
This is how you
didn't
interact
know
with
that.
each other. We got to get this kind of footage for us playing at a party. If you I don't have any beer to knock over onto the carpet and slurp up like Head does, so I'll do it with my Sprite when I spill it in the band hall. And, but it was so Korn was a huge influence on, and so it's interesting because like what you're describing is like, oh yeah, that sounds exactly like Mont Bellevue and Beaumont, just with more trees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where we
Exactly.
grew up, but with trees. So, but I don't know. I feel like those are always good reads to get on someone. Okay, well, like your path through that. Like something I always find interesting is when you talk to people who are different ages, what their relationship to Metallica is. Because I've talked to people who are older than me that they're like, I've met people that say that Ride the Lightning is the sellout Metallica album.
Right.
Because it has acoustic guitar on it.
Because if you were there on the ground floor for Kill 'Em All,
Yeah.
and then you go to Ride the Lightning,
which is
that,
almost basically punk to an extent.
yeah,
right?
exactly,
I mean,
exactly. It was,
Yeah.
it was like a complete 180 in
what
some
is this,
ways.
harpsichord? Fuck this.
Right.
The first thing you hear is a harpsichord, I'm done. Immediately no.
Classical stylings, get that shit out of here.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's interesting to, whereas I was blown away the first time that I found out that there were people who didn't like the Black Album.
Oh yeah, interesting.
My mind was literally blown. It was like someone, I don't know, it was like someone telling me like the sky was purple or something. And you're like, well, the sky is purple at a certain time of day.
Okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Actually.
But yeah, so when like Load and, because Great Southern Trendkill and Load came out around almost like within a month of each other.
That's an interesting parallel.
Like May 6th, 1996 or May 7th, 1996 and like June 4th. Something like that. Somewhere in there, right? And so those were two of the first albums I remember going and buying the day that they came out. So what was the first album or albums you remember going and buying the day that they came out?
That's such a good question and a hard one because I feel like I have a terrible memory. I'll tell you the one that comes to mind is actually like later in my metal journey. I think that most of the metal that I was consuming earlier on, like in middle school when I was really discovering and exploring, was all, legacy stuff, right? Stuff that had been around for a while. Like there was such a large back catalog that I felt like I needed to catch up on in a way.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure that like I probably remember, like when Issues came out by Korn or something like that. I don't like it. It didn't stick in my brain though as like an event. But I feel like even though again this was later on, I mean, but when Deliverance by Opeth came out,
Okay.
that was like for me that was a for some reason a very memorable moment musically when I was like, okay, this is my favorite band at the time. It's the best band that's ever existed of all time, and they're coming out with a new album. Holy fuck, I'm gonna ride my bike all the way to Tower Records, which was like a 45-minute bike ride, and my mom would kill me if she knew we were riding that far, and I'm gonna go buy it and put it in my backpack and take it home with me. Like I remember
So
that.
cool.
I remember that.
That's that was 03, I think.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
I think that was
because I definitely didn't have a car yet. So
Where was that at?
where did I buy it?
Where were you living at the time?
Sugarland. So,
Okay.
So this would have been like I forget if it was like a Tower Records or a Warehouse Music or something like that. But it was in like Town and Country Mall area or whatever it was.
Okay,
Off
gotcha.
of, or whatever that is, Williams Trace or something.
Yeah. That's I remember trying to get. I remember the first time that I showed Robert Opeth in like 2002 or 2001. I showed you like Blackwater Park, and you were like, these are. You were like, why? You're like, there's good stuff happening, but why is it happening together?
I think I was probably tripping out on the different vocal styles
Right. And that it went from,
that he employs. Yeah.
that it went from like this almost like Eagles style classic rock, prog rock vibe to, the death metal and what, like, it was just, there's like a part of me that wishes like if there would have been a way for me to be friends with Harrison and Jacob.
Right.
because I tried, I was into a lot of that stuff, but I couldn't.
You couldn't force it upon us.
I couldn't find a
unfortunately.
single motherfucker to fucking be into Opeth.
There were no inroads.
So we were at some of the same shows, like,
I'm sure, yeah.
like
I'm sure.
Engine Room
Yeah.
and stuff like that in 03 and whatnot. And so, but that, yeah. So,
But I mean, speaking of though, like to go back to your comment about like not being able to comprehend someone not liking the Black Album or whatever. Well, so when was what album did you get introduced to Metallica on?
Black Album.
Okay, so that's it, right? I mean, like I think about that a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and like the way that you get exposed to a thing, it's really ultimately about expectations, I think. But like the
Sure.
time and the context and the specific piece of art that you get exposed to for an artist
Right.
colors your
Totally.
appreciation of their back and forward catalog, like in ways that you cannot like you can't change. You can't help but be different
Yeah.
because of the point at which you happen to jump into the stream of Metallica.
And you certainly can't understand it until it becomes retrospect, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah. Like the first time I heard, I was like 10 or 11 and I had a contact high in the back of my mom's friend's car and wherever I may roam came on the radio and she turned that shit up. And I was like, I didn't know sound could do this. I was high. I was like a high, like 11-year-old, but it changed my life. It was like, that was what I was like, well, I have to have more of this. You know what I mean? The music, I was like, I can't get the weed.
Yeah,
so
like-
I gotta have more of the music.
Mom, I gotta get this. The music,
Yeah, like
the music though.
At that point, you didn't actually know what was making you high, like the smoke that you were smelling or the music. So you're like, yeah, some more of that music.
yeah. I didn't.
If things had gone another way, we would have.
I'm
a very
just
different
so
Richard.
glad that could you imagine if she would have like, I don't know. I can't even think of like a good example, but she turned up like fucking White Snake or something, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
The Cherry Pie song or something from that
I
one
have
band.
no clue.
Winger.
Damn Yankee. Well, I don't know, but that's the thing. I was already exposed to so much music already because of my mom. I already, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, but yeah, that was my entry point to Metallica. And then I was like, well, I mean, if this is great, then the other stuff's great. So I got all of it and I was like, oh man, this is all awesome. I really got into Ride the Lightning. That was my favorite one. And then And Justice for All, because it was like the most technical or whatever. and Kill 'Em All was like, oh, these vocals.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. I love Kill 'Em All now. But and then Load came out, and I remember like having bets with my friends of like which song on here do you think is gonna be the next single? Because it was like this album has to be as big as the Black Album, you know.
You're just mapping it onto the success.
Right, exactly, you know. And then I like went and saw Pantera in July of 1996, and Phil took like 5 minutes to talk about what a terrible album Load was in front of like 10,000 people, and I became I instantly understood. Oh yeah, you're right, Phil. That album is shit. I hate Metallica. I'm so lucky to
But
have
also,
Pantera.
one of the things that I learned while listening to the official live is that he just fucking rambles about who God knows what.
Oh, yeah.
On stage.
Man, these are those rambles.
The thing about pussies is that they're posers or whatever. Like,
Have you never heard
and
this?
all I've been saying for fucking years.
I mean, I didn't listen to it back in the day, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So honestly, it was kind of like rediscovering it for me this week.
The rants on 101 are the top shelf of Phil's rants. That's the best it got.
I got notes.
It's amazing.
I got notes. If you'll whatever, we'll get into that.
Yeah. So which is it. So yeah, that became like that, and I always have to talk about those two albums together because my experience. My window into Phil's experience of Load colored mine. Because looking back, I think that's a great record. I still love listening to it. I still think the songs on it are great, you know, on Load.
Yeah. It's like that thing, like, if it wasn't Metallica, you'd like it or whatever, you know, like, I do think that there's some pretty banger songs on there.
No, fuck that. I like it because it is Metallica.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure that's true for some people, but fuck, who cares?
the thing that I really like about Metallica, like my go-to spiel on them, is that they make records for themselves and they play shows for their fans. And I think that is the fucking winning ticket for success.
Yeah.
As like a metal band, you know, because you don't want to go out there and force the new songs that no one likes down your audience's throat, you know? Like, you've never gone to see Metallica and been disappointed because they didn't play Master of Puppets and Enter Sandman and Sad But True. You know, you get those.
Right.
And so, but they're still doing the things they feel like they need to do creatively.
Right.
And I respect that. Even if I don't like all those records, I respect them trying to do at least trying to do something different, because especially metal, where it's such a conservative genre. And people, like, as soon as people find something that works, they're like, well, I guess this is where I'm going to be at for the next 20 years. And
yeah, that was my experience when I went to go see Cataclysm a few weeks ago. And it was like, wow, these guys are still doing that.
Still making that
Still
record.
doing that, huh? And okay, that's fine. That works, I guess.
I was extremely pleased today to see a thread on a forum about some dude saying, man, have you guys seen this baby metal shit? This is real garbage. And every single person who filtered in after, you know what baby metal is? Baby. Every single person who came in to reply to this dude was like, they're fine. Like, fucking shut up, idiot.
yeah,
I was like, yeah, totally. Because who cares? Like, it's something completely different to what you're used to, and maybe makes you a bit uncomfortable in some parts, but like,
that is a cool thing that I feel like I've definitely seen the past sort of 5 or 6 years, is there's been a definite sort of needle move in the metal press where they've been sort of intentionally more like, all right, well, we're going to talk about Isan from Emperor being inspired by The Weeknd. You know, like we're, you know, like intentionally sort of, I guess, not pushing the shit on other genres or shit on things that don't neatly fit.
yeah.
You know, I feel like it's been sort of an intentional thing, and I'm all for it, because that approach is like really boring.
Yeah, that shit gets really old.
That was always something that made me kind of uncomfortable about some metal appreciators, not all obviously, is that like there was always a weird, like, I don't know, like purity test or not even purity test, but just like just, I don't know, like elitist. It's kind of all these things where they just don't allow themselves to like appreciate things that are not like extremely sincere or dark or brooding or heavy
Right.
or moody or something. Like it doesn't have to be metal, but like it can't be like fun or whatever, like,
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I don't know,
Right. Right.
and you definitely can't put fun in metal. Are you fucking crazy?
No.
No, that's how you get
No
burned
fun
at the stake.
allowed.
No, I'm go to metal as escapism from the fact that I can't have fun like other people.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the people in my metal bands having fun too, unless they're having fun with no girls around, which that'll relate to the Pantera home videos when we talk about those.
Yeah.
But no, man, you're right. Like there is, and I wonder if you being a little bit, I don't know, because I don't know. This is just shit that I wonder about. Is that because it was a long time before I was able to put my finger on that and understand that aspect of the metal community and whatnot. And so I wonder if you being a slightly younger, or if there was something that, or maybe just being in a different area, because we were so isolated that if you just found anyone who could just kind of tolerate the music that you listen to, then you're like, all right, well, if I can get them to tolerate Slayer, I can get them to listen to Cradle of Filth, and so it was all right. Well, we're the same people, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if because like, what was that experience like for you? I guess sort of, like the social aspect,
the community aspect, or whatever.
yeah, of getting into heavy music, or finding people to be into heavy music with and stuff like that, or finding people to be in bands with.
Mm-hmm.
And like when did this inspiration, like this connection to heavy music, translate into you playing it on guitar, being inspired to pick up the guitar?
Yeah. Ooh. I think I was fairly lucky to have, a couple of really close friends that were kind of on the same page as me growing up, with music and with heavy music, and Jacob obviously being one. But there were other friends of mine that were outside of the circle of friends that I had with Jacob as well, that were into metal back in the day, like my friend Randy, who I went to Dark Tranquility with the other day. So I had multiple angles that I was coming out with, and ironically, Pantera actually was a band that I loved in middle and high school that Jacob didn't really care for. He didn't really listen to them. Like maybe it wasn't the right quadrant for him,
Sure.
It just wasn't, it didn't click with him.
Yeah.
But I loved him, and I had friends who also loved them. So it never felt to me like I was like, oh, I wish I had someone to listen to Pantera with, or
Right.
looking or hungry for community with music necessarily. I felt like there was a pretty good amount of folks that would listen to similar things as me at the time, and we were like, it was a very fun discovery, exploratory phase in that middle, like late middle, early high school era, when the internet was coming out, and we were all just kind of finding things and being like,
Right.
oh, have you heard this, and like it was fun. It was kind of like we're almost like one-upping each other. Like I listened to Fear Factory. Oh, well, I listened to Slipknot. Oh, I listened to Nile. And like, oh, you listened to Demon Borger.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
and so it's kind of like one of those things where it's almost like one-upping each other with how extreme you could listen to music,
Right.
So
right.
I had a lot of that. And I don't know like what the inflection point was to like pick up a guitar and start playing. I had been playing guitar by myself, like in my bedroom, for years. I bought my own guitar in like early middle school. I think it was 6th or 7th grade, and I was just playing in my bedroom, and it was mostly like rock and roll type stuff, not much metal really. And then eventually, as my musical tastes evolved, my guitar playing also evolved to follow suit. And I never ever considered playing with other people ever. I was just like, I just think guitar is fucking cool. I just want to play guitar. And I think it was Jacob probably that also decided to get a guitar. And then there was a very competitive thing that started happening. And him and I haven't talked about this too much, but I know it was there. But like there was definitely a competitive thing happening where like he got a guitar, and Jacob being Jacob and like being extremely studious started getting really good and like better than me. And I was like, fuck, like I've been playing longer than you, dude. You already have a nicer guitar and you're better than me. Like that's not how this is going to work,
Yeah.
So
Never
there's-
mind the like years of piano lessons that he already had,
yeah,
which
yeah.
was surely affecting things.
For sure. Yeah, it wasn't like he just picked it up out of nowhere. But so there was a little bit of that happening, and then I think eventually he and I were just like, oh, we can like not just play Metallica together. We could maybe even come up with a thing. And so that was like a natural progression. And then another friend of ours who again was in our musical circle, who you've met before, William. At the time we called him Billy. He was like already in a punk band back in the day, called The Onslaught, and they used to play at the Rosenberg Theater, and they were like legit, punks from Sugarland or whatever. But no, they were cool. And so he was like already had been in a band before, and he was like, "Yeah, let's start a fucking band." And me and Jacob were like, "Ooh, that sounds scary, like we just want to play guitar with each other in our bedroom, like alone." But William was like, "No, let's start a metal band." He's like, "I think it'd be cool to sing in a metal band," and we were just like, "Okay." And so we like started a band, but we never played or anything. And then it was just from there, it kind of evolved naturally, and real bands started to happen. But that was kind of the trajectory, I guess, for me.
How much of that do you resonate with?
Some of it, the wanting to play in my room alone part for years and years.
Yeah,
Certainly.
yeah. That's interesting. Because I decided I wanted to be in a band before I had drums.
Shit.
Interesting.
So,
no, like when I was picking up guitar and actually getting into playing it, I was good friends at the time with like Doug and Jack, and we all were of that same ilk of just like, we have guitars somehow or another, we acquired them, we like the same music generally,
right?
And we all sit in our rooms and just learn songs that from bands that we enjoy. We don't necessarily write songs, so we don't have things to write with each other, or we don't really know how to write things with one another, but we do know how to play songs. We know how to play some of the same songs, so let's the three of us sit in a room and play the songs together because we like playing them. Yeah, that's really what it became. And it wasn't even then there was no concept of like, let's start a band until later, when that actually did happen with those three people. Exactly.
Right, because that's what was interesting, is that like he and I didn't start off always being in the same band. There was like 3 or 4 different cliques in Dayton that had bands.
Okay.
And so eventually sort of, we stole him from
basically,
one of
that's
them.
what happened. Yeah.
But me and Jeremy, like we were very sort of like, hey, let's start a band. Okay, what instrument do you want to play?
Which guy are you gonna be?
Which guy are you gonna be? And I remember it was me, Jeremy, Chris Carr, Josh Baker, and it was like, all right, well, you be the drummer, because I would already shown like an affinity for drums, so I had like my grandma got me a drum set or something.
It's always the grandmas. My grandma got me a keyboard. That was my musical introduction.
Thank you,
My grandma got me a keyboard too.
There you go. There you go.
And but then I remember coming back to school the next day, like 7th grade, and I remember like telling the guys and talking to them like, this is a serious talk. This is a serious talk. I was like, I can't be the drummer. I can't do it. That's not what I'm supposed to be. I need to be out front. And then,
why can't the drummer be up front?
Turns out.
And then Chris goes, "No, man, you'll be great," and like slaps me on the back like a fucking football coach. I'm like, okay. And then I went back home and started practicing.
Wow, Chris, you did it.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. So then eventually I ended up being the singer and the drummer in All Severed, and I would set the drums up at the front of the stage.
It was much more of like a lineup as opposed to.
Yeah, and it would be like guitar, drums. Like, why can't I see the drummer? Yeah. Other guitarists.
That's one of the things where like you think you're being like really avant-garde and like boundary busting, and then you realize that they just do that because it's practical to have the drummer in the back. It's not because it's like some like legacy tradition that must never be like no, it's actually smart. It makes sense. It actually makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, dude, you have to fucking sit down to play your instrument. Yeah. And if we put a platform in the middle of the stage, other people can't move. Yeah. So we put the platform back there. But yeah. So that I think that stuff's fascinating. And so you eventually ended up nestled pretty firmly in extreme metal.
Yeah,
like with your tastes.
Yeah,
right,
for sure. Yeah,
and that ramp up happened pretty quick, from what I understand, and because like it's interesting, and again, like this shit is so fascinating to me. I don't give a shit if anyone else is bored. This is fascinating to me because, like, you were talking about using the internet to discover music and like one up each other. Like we still had this competitive thing of trying to one up each other, but it happened from, Robert reading Guitar World and reading these interviews about like Meshuggah, and me reading Metal Maniacs, and it just was a snail's pace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like me reading that article about Meshuggah on how to play Stenga and then bringing that riff into practice, and you guys being like, "What the fuck are you playing?"
You know, why you do this?
Yeah.
But
And
also, though, did you have an 8-string?
No, absolutely not. It was way too high.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if you had an 8-string, they would have been like, I get it.
Yeah. It would have made more sense
Yeah.
then.
It was
exactly.
funny, man, because I had gotten Chaos Sphere in like 97 or 98 because Metal Maniac said it was important, and I put it on, and I had the same reaction I had to Korn, which was like, I can't handle
I'm
this.
not ready for this.
I am not ready for this. Put it in the case on the shelf for a few years, but it really was Robert that did just one day. He every rehearsal he would show up and he was just like, I'm gonna make y'all eat this motherfucking Meshuggah. And
It was the right thing to do.
and he just
You've got to eat your Meshuggah every single day.
he forced it upon us, and it became like part of our style or whatever of incorporating that stuff. But it was very much. He didn't really give us a choice. It was either we weren't gonna play with Robert or we were gonna play Meshuggah shit.
We're gonna play weird shit like this.
Stern but fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
stern but fair.
But yeah, there was no internet at the time, really, as widespread as all that to do that same sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said when you said like you had a quick ascension, in extreme metal or whatever. In my mind, it didn't feel quick, but relatively speaking, I bet it was because of the time frame.
Right.
Like I definitely had some of the organic. I mean, internet is at this point, I guess, considered organic, but like organic discovery where it's like, oh, you hear something that like your friend's older brother played on the radio and you're like,
Right,
what was
right.
that? Or like you read a magazine or something like that.
Right.
But really, when I started getting very interested, the internet was kind of already a thing. It was still like dial-up or whatever, but you could literally just go into Napster. I mean, Napster was, early 2000s, late 90s or whatever, but like that was coincided quite nicely with my, blossoming into all different types of music, including more extreme stuff. And so if I had heard of something that like sounded extreme, I could go listen to it immediately,
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was a much quicker way but to me, it didn't feel that quick. I mean, in real time, probably, but relatively speaking, I bet it was a lot faster.
And honestly, I bet it's only to our generation and previous that it is a noticeable difference, right? Like,
Yeah,
because from you guys on, it's been this way.
that's where the like just a few years difference in our age, I think, does make a big difference.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to talk to you about all this stuff, because it was something. I mean, we've been friends for 10 plus years, but I remember one of the first times that I met you, I was like, we're almost the same age, but there's almost a generation gap here, because the first time I logged onto Wikipedia, I was a junior in college,
Yeah.
and you were in high school.
Like, I remember the time when college professors would discourage you from using Wikipedia because it was not a creditable source. It was not a. Yeah, you couldn't cite it.
And I remember looking up physics. I remember going on a rabbit hole of like physics research topics and ended up on like the whole like subluminal light business and all that sort of stuff and supraluminal light. We're not talking
Sounds
about
like a
that.
sick band name.
Yeah, right.
Like an infirmed band name. Yeah, no, like you can have light that travels faster than the speed of light. But it's in this really kind of weird way that I'm not really going to talk about it right now. So it has to do like a photon never moves faster than the speed of light, right? But since light travels
Obviously,
at a wave,
we all know that.
sometimes the way the wave interacts can sort of like the wave as a group, like the group velocity of it can be faster or slower than the speed of light. It's real wacky.
The wave group.
So you're saying God does exist?
I think take that, atheists.
And he's got a sick disco ball.
But really like that, I feel like that just the access to the internet, the access to the information. I mean, even like we traded cassettes. Like I remember making Slayer cassettes for people, or like Pantera compilations, or Machine Head, or whatever, or taping things off the radio and distributing those to people.
Yeah,
And
I mean, depending on the car you drove, you maybe only had a cassette player for a very long time, because like when God Hates Us All came out, I think I mentioned this on one of these past episodes. When God Hates Us All came out, it was 2001, And the way I first heard a lot of those songs was I recorded an interview show with them called Rockline
Yeah.
that Slayer was on for this album on a cassette.
Wow.
And listened to it in my mom's car that I drove to college classes back and forth. In 2001, cassettes were still a thing. Absolutely.
That's
Oh,
so
yeah.
right. And
To us, poor weirdos in the middle of nowhere.
and like like the lore that I've heard from you is that there was this dude that gave y'all like an MP3 CD
Yeah.
Yeah.
that had this horde.
But it had like 3,000 songs.
It
on
was like a Rosetta Stone moment for us.
Oh, yeah,
It was
yeah.
like an Ark of the Covenant, like everything unlocked.
Because if it was WAV files, it could only hold like an hour's worth. But if
Yeah.
it was MP3s, it could hold way
Yeah, it
more.
had like 150, 200 songs on it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
we I mean, that had everything from, I mean, I don't remember. I know there was a few things that stood out to me. God Dethroned was one.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, what is this?
Goddamn, bother.
So I was already hungry for extreme metal at that point, and I was already into Slipknot by that point. So I was already
Right.
like, I'd already reached what I had considered the peak at that point,
Right.
And like, I didn't think you could go higher, And again, I had this very linear view of metal, right? At the point. At that point, so like God Dethroned was on there. I'm pretty sure Nile was on there. I'm pretty sure Meshuggah was on there. But yeah, it was like a friend's brother who was older than us like burned it for another guy, and he made copies of it, and he was like, just check this out.
Doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
And so what do you think it was about, a Nile or a God Dethroned that tracked as so much more extreme to you as compared to Slipknot Iowa
Yeah.
or something like that?
I was gonna ask you earlier when you gave the quadrant analogy.
Mm-hmm.
What is the essence of, and how do we like actually like take the constituent parts that make up the thing that you're calling the quadrant? What is it specifically that's happening in the music that you think differentiates the quadrants? And is it lyrics or is it music? Is it probably both? You know what I mean?
I feel like it's more than that.
Yeah.
I think that, I haven't like rigorously thought this out, but I think that it has to do mostly with, it's sort of an intangible presentation, and it has to do with a lot of it has to do with the lyrics, and it has, so to me, like you take Nile, right? And Nile has like more intensity, but to me, Nile is still very much Metallica
Interesting.
because it's stoic. And
It's in that quadrant.
It's at a distance.
It's maybe further to the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But sort of in the way it presents and in the the lyrical content. Like Niall's not up there like talking about not they're not up there talking about like being molested by someone. They're not up there talking about like having
They're
a
literally
psychotic.
talking about Egyptian mythology. How could you get more detached from the subject matter? It happened
Right, I mean-
40,000 years ago.
Right.
And obviously a lot of it didn't happen because it's a myth.
And so don't Carl, if you're listening, he didn't say that. And
But what you described, I think, is a far more nuanced take on the like. You have a quadrant based approach. I had probably a more of a continuum or whatever at the time.
well, and I think really it has to do with how much I emphasize lyrics and the intensity, because Nile, while that's very musically intense. Now I love fucking Nile. Like I was like top 3% in their listeners last year or whatever. Okay. But at the time they didn't make me feel what Slipknot made me feel.
Right.
Because there wasn't the same intensity in the lyrics and the vocals. It wasn't the same kind. It wasn't personal, So it was like, well, that's fast and that's hard to play,
Right.
but so it didn't necessarily feel more extreme to me.
I think for me it was this very superficial elements that felt more extreme. It was faster. The lyrics were less discernible, and they screamed more. Or growled more. Like that was
And
pretty much it. It was very simple for
The
me.
guitar was more prominent. The guitar was more intricate.
Yeah. Usually.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Heavy metal is when the guitars go burr or whatever.
You were gonna say something.
I was trying to workshop how to draw some weird middle ground between the two approaches there, because I feel like I understand both methodologies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I identify immediately more with the linear methodology, where you just find something that's more than the last shit you
Right.
But I also understand where you're coming from, although I historically and period just don't place nearly as much emphasis or importance in the lyrical content. I just kind of never have.
Right, and that was.
But
Go ahead.
This stupid intangible bullshit called vibe, or whatever you want to call it, the feeling, the atmosphere that a piece of music can produce is huge for me. Like that's probably A+ number one aspect of all of this for me, and that the lyrics have a part in that. So I can't discount them, but I don't also pay too much attention to them. But I also feel like my journey was probably I don't want to say that either. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I understand both approaches.
Because it's interesting, because he, like Robert, we did a few episodes back, we did like 4 parts where he exposed me to all this video game music that was really important to him. And in there, I mixed in 2 episodes of exposing him to like my early journey through like death metal elements. Like as I was gradually exploded, exposed to more and more extreme, like pieces of the death metal language, sometimes without realizing that that's what it was. And, you never really vibed with a lot of that stuff. It's certainly not when we were growing up. It still kind of like confuses me that we were in such an intense metal band for so long, because it's so like, I get why Jeremy was into it, but it was always like so contradictory to your personality. And I feel like that could be the same could be said as you, like you're very like, I mean, y'all are in overlapping fields, even right now, like y'all have sort of a similar.
There are a lot of metalheads in tech.
Yeah, but I don't know that I've seen a lot of them fucking destroy a stage the way that I've seen the two of y'all do it, though. There's a difference between being a fan of the genre and being able to go and like do on stage what I've seen both of y'all do. So don't sell yourself short.
I'll take that.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that's just kind of interesting. Like it's like what. I wonder what it is that still nestled, that y'all still felt comfortable playing such extreme music, or that you felt very drawn to it and it kept ratcheting it up, I mean, and I don't know, like
for me, it's always been, there's a very clear delineation between what I like to listen to for enjoyment and what I like to play. There's always been a very, those are 2 different things. And they kind of always have been. A lot of what I listen to, I end up wanting to play, so there's an overlap there, obviously.
Yeah.
But as we'll get to later in this talk, I learned Revolution Is My Name when it came out in Guitar World.
Yeah.
And that song's fun as hell to play. Still is. I learned every fucking note of it. I couldn't play the solo up to speed or anything, or the solos up to speed. But I learned the whole thing and loved it. And that was very fun to play. Don't like to listen to it though. a bit of a tame example, I know, because it's this album, but there's more extreme shit that I've listened to that I have not necessarily, I guess I didn't really want to play too much of that, but there are more extreme things that we wrote that I enjoyed playing versus what I enjoy listening to a lot of the time.
Right, because
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Right, because it was never like, like the extreme vocals or we're gonna just go 90 miles an hour and turn this down. That was never your vibe,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. So all right, I got one more question, sort of related to this sort of journey into extreme stuff. So did you ever find anything that you're like, that's too far?
I mean, yeah, obviously at certain points, but I always overcame that, I mean,
Where did you stop? Like, where did you go? Like, you know what? That's far enough. That's as far as I need to go.
I mean, on the linear scale, and to be clear, the linear scale was at the time is how I looked at things, but I don't obviously look at things like that anymore. But I think that if you do apply the linear of like the most extreme, I mean, I guess eventually you would end up at like anal cunt or something like that.
Okay, yeah,
You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, well, this just sounds stupid and it's not even fun, And I like
Right.
I like grindcore actually, but like anal cunt, like they're obviously joking as well, and it's actually kind of fun because it's silly. But I mean, I guess if you take it to its logical conclusion, you eventually arrive at anal cunt, and it's just like, that's it. The song's over.
Yeah. And so, well, then I guess you just go to the next thing. And you're like, all right, well, we need 20-minute songs. Well, and I guess like that's the thing about extreme, right? Is that extreme is always reacting to itself in a way. So
Right.
if it's like, oh, well, I'm going to do the lowest vocals. Well, I'm going to do the highest vocals. Well,
Right.
I'm going to do the fastest. Well, I'm going to do the slowest. Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to do the longest. I'm going to do the shortest. I'm going to do the,
I feel like, have you guys, not to go too off topic, but
Please.
it's not off topic because it's metal, but like speaking of like upping the ante from an extreme perspective, I feel like that band, have you guys heard Lorna Shore?
Yeah.
I feel like that's their entire point of existing, is just to show that not only can we have the fastest blast beat, but we can have the slowest breakdown, and we can have the highest scream and the lowest guttural growl, and like it's like they're just like trying to do it all.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was the logical conclusion. If you had told me like back in my like linear metal progression days of extreme music, like that Lorna
Right.
Shore existed, I'd be like, oh, that's the culmination. That's where you stop.
Yeah. That's funny. Because there's also, I mean, that's kind of like a lot of what just sort of modern deathcore is in general anyway. I feel
True.
like I don't feel like Lorna is unique in that.
But they also make it symphonic. Like they're just doing too much. They're doing it all. They're trying to do like cram every possible extreme element in and do it the most fast/slow/ symphonic.
There's always
all
a
at
yes
once.
and to
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
it. Jeez.
oh man, I like a few of their songs,
No,
man.
I don't. See, here's the thing: is like I don't dislike it. It's like candy. You just can't. It's not
Shit.
sustaining, but it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. I like this candy. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that
yeah,
analogy.
yeah. Did you fuck with like Slaughter to Prevail or like any of that stuff?
No, I mean not much. There was definitely some deathcore overlap back in the metalcore days that I was kind of into for a while. Like I remember thinking that like Through the Eyes of the Dead was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
If you remember them, because they had like one breakdown with a really fast. It was just, again, I was still on my linear thing. I was like, wow, that breakdown is crazy. It was a
Right.
really fast thing, and they were kind of death metal-y, but like not, only superficially.
We saw them live.
Did we?
We did the Unholy Alliance tour.
Well, there you go.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure.
That was Astro.
I might
Arena?
be mixing some bands up.
Unholy.
Well, all of the bands back then all sounded the same, and also all had the same names. It was like the deathly dying blood deaths of the underground eyes of the dawn or whatever. They're all of the bands were just those 8 words rearranged,
Right.
including As Eden Burns. By the way, burns.
So that sort of brings up the last thing I really wanted to mention before we start talking about stuff. So you were in, we have the man himself, right? A guitarist of As Eden Burns. So the only person that I know who's turned down a record deal from Nuclear Blast.
Damn.
So
We had
I'm not lying.
Our
This
fa-
isn't bullshit.
our fans were like never nudes. There were literally dozens of them.
That's not true. They still show up. I still see it pop up in like.
Occasionally, if you dig really deep into some random subreddit, they'll be like, "Have you guys ever heard of As Eden Burns?" And there was like 2 likes.
That's not what happens. That's not what happens. Someone just throws the song up, and then there's like 30 dozens, I guess, people that are like, this fucking rips. I feel like these guys are amazing. They're ahead of their time. Blah 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 blah. So, but the point is that you're like a king shit metal guitarist. You made a really really great record, and you should be proud of it because I think it's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
And yeah, I don't know, man. I just didn't
What
feel
was
like
the question? No, just kidding.
I just didn't feel like I could like,
praise,
hey,
just praise.
I don't feel like I'd have Harrison on here to talk about like metal and not mention that like, oh yeah, you were in a band that was like signed to a fucking hot shit fucking metal label, and you know, and you toured and you did all the stuff that all of us who didn't know you, but we knew Trey, and we were jealous and we talked shit about you without ever having met you or knowing you.
We were assholes.
So, I do remember. Yeah, that's like the weird connect. Like Trey sang in As Eden Burns, and so that's like the, you know. And we went to school with Trey.
Yeah, yeah.
So love
That's
that dude.
Small world. Small world.
Yeah.
I do remember that was like the first time that we like the first time that we hung out was at an Opeth show. The first time that you and I met, and we just was like, wait, you know Trey? I know Trey. You know Trey? and that was like the starting point of the conversation. But
Yeah, I remember.
but
that.
anyway, like, so how I this is just of my own curiosity. So like y'all did a few tours, right?
Yeah, we did a handful, like maybe like 4 or 5 if you count like a couple of Texas ones, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we did like, I would say like 4 legit ones where we actually like traversed the country, you know. But and then we did
how many shows roughly?
we did probably 3 that were at least a week or 2 weeks. Nothing crazy, right? I mean, but no, longer. Sorry, we did like a month. I think on.
Okay.
We did a month where we were with the Funeral Pyre from like East LA, and we did like 2 weeks with them, and then we did 2 weeks with Cerberus, which was from like Northern California. So that was like a full month straight, you know, without coming back, and that was mostly West Coast. And then we did another one that was like around the East Coast, basically the entire eastern half of the U.S. And it started in like Asheville, North Carolina, and then came back south down towards Baton Rouge, and then went back up north, and we finished in New York. And that one was about 3 or 4 weeks as well. And then I want to say we did another week or 2 stint in there, and then we did several like Texas tours where we would do like hit up Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, maybe go down to Brownsville or McAllen. We did Laredo once, and we did El Paso. Like we did some things like that occasionally.
Cool.
But I would say like 2 or 3 legitimate ones where we were gone for several weeks without coming home, you know, and then like a couple of little ones as well. But
Awesome.
yeah, good times.
I'm jelly.
Yeah, totally.
I'm totally jelly.
Yeah,
I would love to have done that at some point.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
it was fun, man. It was, I mean, it was definitely some of the most fun times of my life for sure. And I don't say that in like a, man, if I could just go back, like I appreciate it for what it was. You know, it was awesome. It was really fun.
Like even the shit we did, I feel the exact same way. Where I was like, I would never do that again. But boy, I loved doing that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know if I would sleep on a random dude from Laredo's mom's ceramic tile floor in her kitchen in my sleeping bag again, but it was fun, you know, looking back.
I can see how that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he sold drugs.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be fun.
Yeah. That is a bummer always when you're like hanging out with someone and the drug dealer shows up and their drug dealer hangs out for a really long time.
Yeah. Good times.
But yeah, that was something that I always sort of really, I don't know, that I thought was it was perplexing at first, but eventually I thought it was something I always really respected you for, was that, you know, you were like, yeah, I did that, and I got enough of a taste of it that it was like I understand what it is, and I'm good. So
To be clear, I would have kept doing it if I could have financially sustained it, or if it would have made out. Like in my mind, that was going to be my path. For a while, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to play music. You know,
what moment were you like, oh,
this is over?
Yeah.
I don't think it was like an immediate thing. I think it was like a slow death type of thing. But I think there was definitely a moment when I started college and we got a tour offer, and I told my parents, I'm like, I'm going to skip this semester because I'm going to go on tour with my band. And my dad is a musician, and he's like struggled his whole life, you know, like financially and everything, was trying to be a professional musician. And my mom, obviously like was exposed to that as well. So I think when I told them both, they were like both of them respectively, separately, were like, oh, but you're gonna go back and get it. I'm like, yeah, of course. But in my mind, I was like, well, if this takes off, man, I don't know. U of H, they might not get me back. They may not get me back.
Right.
So I remember that moment, but I don't know that there was a moment when I like hung up my metal cleats or whatever you do. I don't like, and then never picked them up again. Like, because I still played music for years.
Right, you never stopped.
Like I've played music for a long time with
Right.
other bands, just like for fun around town. I even did a tour like with Cavernous once, like which was like totally not a signed band. We just fucking said, let's just go on a tour. That was fun. We went out to the West Coast and came back. So
let's not forget Cavernous, like another like seriously incredible band that you were a part of. Like I remember there was like when I was teaching high school, there was like like one of my students was like, wait a minute, the guys in Cavernous? Like I was able to have like street cred with my students because I knew you. I was like, yeah, dude, I had Thanksgiving with that guy. They're like, oh my God. Good. So yeah. But it's like, I guess, I don't know. I always sort of, you always seemed, I don't know. What am I trying to say? You never seemed like you bought the dream. Like full hook, line, and singer. You always seemed like you had a very sort of measured and healthy sort of distance and approach to it. And you're like, yeah, this is fun. I'll do this. This makes sense for me to do right now. Oh, this doesn't make sense right now. I'm going to stop.
Because it sounds like you really enjoyed it and you loved it and you wanted to pursue it.
Yeah.
But when it came time to choose and make the rational choice, you were able to do that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a gut-wrenching, like a crisis for me necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It also wasn't like an overnight thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah. But I do remember. This is funny, like kind of embarrassing. I remember one time. Because my band, As Eden Burns, used to get compared to the Black Dahlia Murder a lot,
Sure.
and they're way better than us, by the way. But people would just compare us to them a lot. And I remember hearing like, I don't know, like, just offhand, someone said, "Oh yeah, those guys, they make like $35K a year in just doing the Black Dahlia Murder," and I was like, it is possible. I can live off of that
Right?
for the rest of my life.
Right.
That's so much money.
Because at a certain point, you're like, I've never seen that much money at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
I don't. By the way, I don't think that number was accurate, probably, but
Seems
it
right,
was in my
right?
mind
But-
as like it was a thing because it all felt very mysterious. How do these people sustain themselves? Are they all trust fund kids? Because I certainly was not, and I was like, I actually need to make money if I'm going to do this. Like I have to, I have to eat food,
Right.
Right. Yeah. That's a thing I riff on about. I riff about a lot on. Whoa, my prepositions are fucked. Let me push this away a little bit. That's a thing I often riff about. Is that when I was growing up, if you were gonna make money playing in music, you either had to, or make money doing music, you either had to be a band director or a rock star. Like you were either gonna teach the kids trumpet at the junior high, or you were gonna be Bruce Springsteen. Like there was no in between, because that was the musicians, that was the music people that my parents knew of.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that there was any way to sustain yourself doing anything related to music, that somewhere in between those, like you either had to be on magazines and like in magazines of some type, or you were going to be like, telling people not to like
Or you had your own studio in your backyard.
or like no PDA on the buses, like
Right.
it was either going to be one of those two
It was
things.
like the shit that we knew, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, that, I don't know, like that's something I think about, or that like I've thought about often in the sense, because that like greatly colored my experience and my approach. It was like, all right, like what everyone told me was, okay, you can do music if you want, but you need to get a degree first
Yeah.
to fall back on.
Right.
That's what I was always told, And then whenever I like got my degrees, it's like, I want to do music. And they're like, well, not in my house.
Not like that.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I not understanding that they're not having, but like, okay, what made me think of that was that you said it was like this unknown thing. And like, there's no understanding of how you, okay, yeah, we know how you make there's people out there that make millions of dollars playing music, but we don't know about anyone who like
the in betweens there.
yeah.
Like it was interesting that our mutual friend Clay. I feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation a little bit, but just
It's because I'm looking at you asking you questions about your
because
life.
I'm the new guy.
Tell us your secrets.
But our mutual friend Clay pointed out something that I never thought of before about when we went on tour, which was that it was a self-sustaining entity, which is something that an author that we like talks about, Daniel Quinn, of like different ways of life and ways of working that don't require you to like kind of just, be a cog in the machine of capitalist civilization or whatever. And so it was a thing where like, we weren't taking loans out to go on tour for a month. We weren't borrowing money from our parents.
Right.
It was self-sustaining. We made exactly enough money, no more and no less.
Right.
You made exactly enough money to put gas in the van.
Right. You weren't able to put away for a college fund for your kid in the future, but you were able to do what you were doing.
So if we kept driving that van forever, then we'd be good.
Right.
Like
no one ever wanted anything else besides that.
Exactly.
You'd be okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was a mystery behind like how does this sustain itself? How do you survive doing this?
Yeah.
And I think it was either, in my mind, as someone who was exposed to other touring bands, like in reality, I was like, okay, well, that guy lives with his mom, and whenever he's not on tour, he sleeps on her couch. This guy is a trust fund guy. Like, and I started to demystify it a bit, and I was like, oh, okay, well,
interesting.
I don't necessarily want that,
Man,
or I'm not that.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Dude, that's the dirty secret right there.
Yeah,
that really is, because the more, like I was hanging out with somebody, and like I'm listening to like band famous well-known Grammy-winning band X, and they're like, oh yeah, I went to school with that guy. His dad started a management company for that band. And it's like, because you want to think that it's just hard work and talent.
Right.
It's like, no, it's
like in all of the bands that I like knew, I don't think a single one of those people that were in the bands like had their own apartment and paid for all their own shit when they weren't on tour.
Right.
They all had some situation that they were dealing with in between tours.
Right.
And it was like, oh, okay, I see where this is. I guess I could live with my mom,
Right.
Yeah, on the one hand, I don't think I ever I would never have expected it to be super glamorous or anything like that. And if we had wanted to make it work as bad as we could have, there would have been ways to like make those sacrifices and like live with my mom until I'm like 35 or something.
Right. I mean, we the three of us like lived together in my apartment for a summer while we were writing. You know what I mean? Like we would have found a way to do it.
And by the way, the whole time I was touring, lived with my mom.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I'm not surprised at that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. And for what it's worth, I'm not talking about like, opening metal bands. I'm talking about like, it's like, because in terms of if you're going to go out and you're going to make a living doing music, you either have to be doing something that there's a high demand for, or you have to be able to sustain yourself long enough to find your audience and kind of create that demand.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can only do that with capital of some type. And so, and that's like the dirty secret.
And this is where we start talking about communism. You ready, comrades?
Yet.
I have the proof.
Not right now.
I have the proof that that's how the music business works. You could even say I have the 101.
Look at that transition. What a segue. Are we starting with that?
Wait a minute. This is my question for this episode.
Okay.
How do we want this to go? What do we want to start talking about? Because there's a way that you might... There's a trajectory that this episode is going to take. And my question is, how do you want this to end? And this is what I thought about today. And so before we start talking about this album, how do you want this to end?
You know what, man? I make a lot of decisions, Robert. So I'm gonna let you make this decision.
I don't. What are the options?
Well, we talk about 101 proof first, or we talk about reinventing.
Oh,
the Steel?
I understand. Interestingly enough, I think I have the exact opposite point of view on these albums. from you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. That
So-
puts a wrinkle in things.
Yeah, I feel like
Then
yeah. I don't
Okay,
know.
maybe that question is less important at this now.
then maybe we default to chronology then.
Okay.
I think chronology is a safe and objective bet.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So 101 proof it is. Now before we get into this, I have something to show you. I meant to show you this last week or 2 weeks ago when we did Tranquil and Far Benjamin, but I couldn't find it. I found it.
It has been found.
So this is a binder that I cut out like all of the Pantera articles from all the magazines I had circa like 1996 to like 1998.
Storied Pantera member Kurt Cobain.
Yeah. Well, you
His
know.
lower half, his lower third, I guess.
So I wanted to show you that.
Okay. Oh my God! Look how young they look. Oh, the kids. Hey, I'm gonna read the Sponge article if you don't mind.
Right, yeah, because Hit
This
Parader.
is about Wax Static.
So is this a thing that y'all did? Did y'all like have a bunch of issues of Hit Parader and shit laying around that you hang the posters up on your walls and shit?
When you initially said that one of your like sources for music was zines and stuff like that, I was trying to remember if that was something that I did or got into. I'm sure it was.
Couldn't escape Kurt Cobain. There's every other page he turns
Oh my
to.
God. Wait, was
there's
this like
Kurt
right
Co-
after he died or something? Or
No, I don't
Well,
think so.
I,
Or right
well, I
before.
mean, like 96. That's like 2 years.
2
after he
years,
died.
yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, you know, he lived in everyone's mind rent free, I guess. I don't know that like I got a lot of information and stuff from magazines. I'm sure I did, but I don't think it was as much. Is that the like CD clearinghouse where you get like 48 CDs?
No, that's
this is where
Rockabilia.
this is where you order T-shirts.
Oh, the
These
T-shirt,
bands. Mail order
Yes.
T-shirts.
Okay, so I do remember like salivating over T-shirts in a magazine. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we would read magazines. Man, it's been a while.
Yeah. So I at some point I found this like literally right before y'all got here, because I remembered what box it was in. But at some point I'm gonna like dig through it because I think it's gonna be really interesting to sort of unpack how the press was talking about Pantera at the time. And how much that instilled so many bad habits in me about how I played the drums, and things like that. Because
Oh, like did you super glue quarters onto your beaters or whatever?
not so much that, but just I think I just hit too fucking hard, and I think it was just, you know what I mean, because you couldn't. Like everything that I learned about how to play the drums came from like a like 2 seconds in a music video.
Right.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
right.
And all
The
this
drums
sort of
weren't even
stuff.
mic'd.
Well, right, yeah. It was all about that visual presentation. It wasn't about like, well, how the fuck is like Vinny actually playing?
Performative, as the kids say.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we start with 101 proof.
So what? First question I have. I'm sorry. What the fuck is it called? Is it called 101 proof? Is it called official live? Is it called official live 101
Official
proof?
live 101 proof.
Official live 101
Is there a
proof.
colon in there?
Is
Is
there
there?
is.
I think there is, yeah.
Official,
Look at
oh,
it.
official live colon 101 proof. Okay,
Yeah,
guys, let's
I
talk
think so.
about official live colon 101 proof
you go.
now.
Yeah.
Take this is a fucking treasure trove.
It's something, right?
I could spend a long time
it's
with
a
that.
time capsule.
There's a
I'm
lot
impressed.
going on there. Yeah,
I'm impressed.
I'm
If you
way
wanna-
into
If you want
that.
to peruse through it, it might fuck you up a
So
little bit.
you manually compiled this back in the day?
Yeah.
For Pantera, you're like, I love Pantera. Let me go ahead and consolidate all the articles.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because I was,
That's amazing.
And I somehow held
Richard,
on to
I
it.
love you so much, but that just makes me love you even more. I love this.
When I somehow held on to it for 25 years,
Yep.
is the crazier part of it. Like in the binder that I assembled it in.
Like I have some Guitar Worlds from back then somewhere, I think, but like this is another level.
Would you say it's a new level?
of confidence for sure. Power questionable.
All right, man. So let's fucking get into this shit. So
Let's
this
get
is,
into this shit.
So this is kind of weird, right? So the previous sort of litmus that we were doing was, like, 3 essential, 1 to trash, and it's kind of tricky to do with a live album.
You'd think that, wouldn't you?
Because they're only choosing the bangers, right?
No, honestly, this was gut wrenching.
To pick.
To pick the hard one or to pick the good ones?
Let's.
So
It was extremely easy for 2 out of 3 of these. Let's say.
sure, yeah.
I just
All right.
want to read this quote off of this Pantera article.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is you don't need to take dope, man.
Okay, now contradictory point of view coming up very, very soon.
Smoke dope.
Smoke dope.
Smoke fucking dope.
All right.
My favorite track is the one where Phil Anselmo just talks about smoking dope. Which one is that?
That's a few of them. I think that's more than one.
So, okay. So what's one of your essential tracks on this, Robert?
Okay, well, so This Love,
All right. For what reasons?
which was the tough choice. This was where I didn't have a great choice because how many songs are on here?
It's so many.
16.
So the first 14 tracks I couldn't choose between them. Let's say.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It's just a great performance of that track.
Yeah.
They do so many great things. It's the one where Phil says, "On the redbeard,
Yeah!
on the lead guitar, son of a bitch, Dimebag."
Yeah, I wrote that shit down too.
So that's fucking great. But I've got notes on a lot of other songs just stupid little things I want to pick out.
Yeah.
So that's the first one I picked for that.
Yeah, man. I think that one of mine for this was I'm Broken, because
I made notes about this one.
it just like I'm having a good time like that. That just captures the thing for me that is just that, oh man, it's real. And then also, because to me there's a few essential things about the Pantera live experience, and one of them is like like it or not, it's the crazy shit that Phil says, which is hit or
better or
miss.
worse.
But when it's hit, man, when it hits, it fucking hits. And we have totally, for your info, Harrison, we spent 30 minutes in the first episode unpacking all of Phil's racist bullshit.
At least.
So we don't need to do it now.
Thank you for your service.
But
So-
it's there. We
We did it. And so dealt with it. So we're not glossing over that. But that's one of the essential aspects of it. So if there's like good banter, I was willing to be like, this is my favorite track. Just because there's
interesting,
like a
yeah.
funny speech, because I saw Pantera live like 4 fucking times. And so it's like, that's part of the experience.
Were you like transported when you listened to this, like to the live events that you were at?
You know, I wish I could say that I was. I feel like what I am transported to is I'm taken somewhere. Like the thing that I wrote down about this, like my general impression of the record is I can metabolize this record. Like I can skip meals. Just let me listen to this. Like my body can, my cells can convert the sonic energy of this record into energy.
So do you have like an overall impression of this record prepared?
I
as it
do.
were?
I do.
Okay.
It's not as good as the albums.
I it's not Pantera's fault. I just don't really understand live metal albums.
Fair point. Honestly.
They don't resonate with me. I love live metal music,
Right.
but listening to it to me is like a very, very like paper thin facsimile of the real thing. To me, it's like I can tell that it was an amazing show, but like I wasn't there. You know, like
Right.
I'm not getting 80%, in my opinion, of the experience of being at a Pantera show.
Right.
All I hear is like in my mind is like a version of I'm Broken that just sounds like the album because they're so fucking tight, but a little bit sloppier with a bunch of crowd noise in the background. That's what I hear.
Okay. You're not wrong. I can't say that you're wrong.
Right.
I will give my.
I will say that you are also wrong.
I'm like open to be proven wrong on this 100%. And I feel like I'm absolutely in the minority on this, by the way, because I remember even when I liked Pantera and my friends who liked Pantera were all like fucking lost their shit over this CD. And I just could never get, like, I would listen to it, be like, I mean, it sounds pretty good, but I'd rather just listen to the real thing.
Well, so what I mean by you're not wrong is like that is objectively what this is.
Right.
That is what we have here.
Yeah.
Just like Exhibit A is that what he fucking described. However, my overall thought on this album is, if I had to choose one Pantera album forever, it's this one.
Yeah.
Because, precisely because of, well, partially precisely because of the fact that these songs are so close to the album versions. However, additionally, what I realized coming back to this, 'cause it's been a long time since I sat and listened to this album.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized, especially over listening to the last 4 studio albums over the past couple of shows, is that all of the little foibles and like eccentricities that happen in these songs live, the little whoas and the little and the little drum things,
Sound changing.
yes, all that shit, I now, that's canonical in my head for these songs.
Okay.
So
Right.
whenever I hear the album versions, it sounds weird to me
Mm-hmm.
that those things aren't there. This has like supplanted the original for me now, on some level, and I'm fine with that because they sound so fucking good on here.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too, because I think that so much of my... Now, did you ever see Pantera live?
No. And that's exactly why I asked you.
Right.
When you listen, and I assume you've seen them live?
A couple times, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'm jealous as fuck. I'm
should be.
I feel like a poser. But this is where like the 3 or 4 years difference makes a huge difference.
Right.
Sure.
Because by the time I got into them, they were on their way out. And
I
if
mean,
not already out, I don't know.
I didn't
don't
see
even
him
remember.
until 2000 when Reinventing the Steel came out.
There you go.
Right.
So,
And I saw them in 96, in 97, in 99, and then in 2001.
yeah, that's insane.
So
that's why I asked you is like, does this transport you? Because you can probably much easier put yourself there almost to an extent.
I think so.
And like really catch a vibe, as the kids say.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that it necessarily, like when I listen to this, I don't think of the Pantera concerts that I was at.
Sure.
But when I hear this, I know that that's how a fucking Pantera concert sounds.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, yeah. And then the other thing too is like, I know the part that, like, one of my favorite parts of the record is the rant that he does before Suicide Note Part 2. because you know, that's like the which one is that? Like
that's the one where he's just saying
because
things about posers or something.
where he kind of goes off a
Probably.
little bit, you know, because he's like, so obviously something's wanting to hear something these fucking experts are telling you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
ain't
Oh,
supposed to be hearing
the
that.
experts.
I wrote that down. So that's
and it's amazing because he does that and the crowd doesn't respond at all.
so the line verbatim is, and obviously someone's wanting to hear something that fucking these experts are telling you ain't supposed to be hearing.
And no one responds. And he's like, all right. and then you get the image that I have in my mind is like Dimebag walking up behind him, because this is what would happen at shows. Is Dimebag's like, hey,
That's enough.
and then Phil goes, what? And you hear him say that.
What?
You hear him
Yeah.
go, what?
You can hear like the mic go away from his
Yeah.
face as he says it.
What?
What? Yeah, totally.
Oh man.
Our hit? This is our hit.
No, that's later. That's later.
No, it's not.
Is it this song?
I'm sure.
Okay, well that's where the track splits then.
Yes, that's where the.
So
you know,
I have
you
that-
Won't, yeah, you won't hear this song.
So again, verbatim. Our hit, this is our hit. This next song is our hit. You won't hear this song anywhere but in your goddamn car, at home, or on this fucking stage, and that's the way it should be. Ladies and gentlemen, Vinnie Paul on the drums.
Please start that song.
Well, okay, so I listened to that part like 10 times in a row, and I think he says, please, cha-cha-cha. That's what I wrote down. I wrote sick next to it because I don't know for sure. But that is what I heard. That's all I can comprehend from it.
Is there a video recording of this too?
No.
There's not,
For
unfortunately.
some reason, I
God,
thought there
would-
was. I don't know
Well,
why I thought there was.
Benji talks about it in the middle of fucking Walk, which I don't like the song Walk, but
Right. He says they're filming from the goddamn home
we're
video.
filming for the goddamn live home video.
Oh, he got confused. Film, record. What's the difference?
My favorite part of that rant is how he's like, Vince from the verse, can't you see?
Can't you see, baby? One,
Like-
2, 3.
Like Vince doesn't know the fucking verse is.
Oh man.
But that's like, but that idea, right? That like they're playing like one of their best fucking songs, and Phil catches a whim and he waves the band. He waves his fucking arms.
Literally stops the fucking music.
And they're such a tight fucking band and like understand each other so well that they're like, oh, okay, all right.
I mean, honestly, it's pretty amazing how they come to that stop, even because when he's like getting their attention, they go dun 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 dun. That's not how that part goes. They do that to stop it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so weird.
Right.
I think I must have missed this, or that nuance.
Yeah, and this record is just chock full with all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
I see. I'm understanding, like, so to me, when I looked at this, I was just looking at it as like you said, like face value, basically. I was looking at it as a collection of. It's almost like a stand-in for their greatest hits, right? Because
Basically,
it's essentially like their greatest hits album.
It is, yeah.
Right.
Even though they did one later, but this is way superior.
Yeah, fuck that album.
Right.
Fuck that thing.
And I was just looking at it as like, oh, this is just like their best songs through Trendkill, right? This is
Yeah.
But it's live, and there's crowd noises and Phil's kind of ranting. But I'm understanding now that like you guys are really, it's the total package. It's not just the songs.
Right.
It's the songs, of course, plus the nuances, the minor eccentricities is a good word. The like interplay between the band that like obviously in the studio they're gonna sound tight because they're tight, but like even live you can really tell just how special they were, you know, as a unit, so to speak. And a lot of that comes through in a way that I think is unique to a live album. But still, it doesn't make me want to listen to it. But I totally understand, like, and appreciate what you guys are saying. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, that is like an interesting that is like an interesting aspect about it. But that, and like, because all of these things, they but glean the surface of what a Pantera concert was. And the way that a Pantera concert felt was you had the biggest metal band on the fucking planet, but you did, and I mean, and maybe part of that was that you didn't have the internet. So you couldn't hop on setlist.com and see like, oh, they're playing the same set list every fucking night. So everything did have this fresh, spontaneous, like, I don't know what's going to fucking happen. And whenever they're playing I'm Broken and they end it with the outro of By Demons Be Driven, had this feeling like, oh, they talked about that at sound check. Mm-hmm. Like they've never done it before tonight because I've never heard it before tonight.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of, there was a lot of magic that got to be sold to you because you weren't able to, like look up footage from the first concert, the first date of the tour and see the set list and see, this and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So everything felt fresh. Like when you saw Pantera, you felt like they were just calling songs out.
I mean, in that particular moment, also, it almost feels like the band did, and Phil didn't even know it, because when they go into like
fucking A.
Phil's like, fucking yeah. He's like, oh shit, you guys did that? That's rad. Right? I wonder.
He's just along for the ride.
Yeah, I wonder if that was the case. They could have been.
I bet you're right. I bet you're right.
And because I specifically wonder that because it happens again later on in the set for a different song, and he doesn't understand it.
Well, and that's the thing that like I've taken Phil to task on the racism and all that bullshit, but the thing is part of what makes him such a legendary frontman is that he was able to be this absolute stand-in for the audience and speak for the audience. And so like, what are you feeling as the audience whenever they throw you this curveball and they end this song with the ending of another song?
Fucking
A. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Right, like the son of a bitch Dimebag. Like that's what you're supposed.
You
And
just
so,
like can't even believe it.
yeah, and he's
Incredulous.
You're in the band.
Yeah, right. You were probably there in rehearsal.
Yeah.
You just don't
like
remember.
if you weren't so fucking hopped up on horse, you would have you know they were doing this. Thank God you don't play guitar in this band.
Jesus.
Okay, so before we go any further, we never got your first pick for a keeper.
Interestingly enough, I don't know if I'm trying to be like provocative or whatever, but I actually thought Suicide Note Part 2 was probably one of my favorites on the album. It's so fucking intense.
It is.
And I think when you consider the rant that leads into it, it's just I was like, what experts? Like I was like
Great question.
I was thinking like oh, there must have been some context in the time period that I wasn't aware of. Like maybe there was like a shitty article or write up about them in some article magazine or something.
I think it was more of a general tenor of the. I don't want to say discourse at the time. It was like magazine articles, so it was like in advance written and everything. But a lot of articles were like shit like that. And even in like Guitar World, that was printing at the same time like metal tabulature. They were also like, here's the new alternative shit that's supplanting the metal, like in so many words, you know.
It's such a strange thing, that period of time in music, because it
wasn't not a thing, but also he blows it out of proportion.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because at some point there was an organic element of like people wanted to listen to Nirvana and not Guns N' Roses anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the way that the music industry reacted to Nirvana, which was that they, like, since less money was going to bigger metal acts, that meant that less money was going to mid-level and lower-level metal acts. So that meant that like death metal bands that got in the early 90s, like Obituary and Suffocation, that got signed to Roadrunner, all of a sudden had a good budget for their albums that came out in 1990, but then had a shit budget for their albums that came out later, you know, and things like that. Like all that stuff sort of rolled downhill because metal became like a dirty word, and the way the industry responded to it.
Yeah.
And the way that the industry would sort of like, well, we don't want, because like Nevermind was like made with like 30 grand and it became the biggest record in the fucking world. And that's not supposed to happen. So they panicked and went to like every city that had any alternative scene, and they just signed every band. Like gave them like $5 grand. And they're like, oh, well, that's more money. Like that's what I was talking to JP from Clutch, and that was what he says. Like, yeah, it was more money than we'd ever seen in our lives. So we said yes. You know,
speaking of bands that like grind it out and do it,
fucking A,
sustain
right?
themselves for years, yeah. Clutch.
You know, but they were one of the bands that got caught up in that like sort of uptick, right?
Yeah.
So like in a sense, like Phil's not wrong, but also in the sense it's like big triggered white man shit, big, you know, like
Yeah, that's the sense that I kept
Totally.
getting. It was just like, bro, just fucking play your shit and shut up.
right. It's
I
like,
don't know,
can
like,
you
who
like
cares?
not fathom
Stick to
that-
football. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's it's like okay, so you know how like old boomer white dudes like complain about Colin Kaepernick like protesting police brutality, and they're wrong about that. I felt like Phil Anselmo was like, or like, and we make fun of them for saying that, I should say.
Yeah.
Not to get political, but like
political,
when
I don't-
We're already here.
yeah, when Phil Anselmo was like complaining about experts or whatever, that's like when he's also wrong. I don't know. I had a thread, then I lost it. But
it's like
he's
like
basically a boomer who's making fun of Colin
basically
Kaepernick.
it's the vaguest like just lashing out shit.
Yeah.
Right. And-
yeah, it's nothing.
Well, and what we kind of talked about, like in the lyrics, that was interesting, like as you go from Cowards from Hell to Vulgar to Far Beyond German to Tranquil, I don't want to go all the way into it, but a brief rehash is like Cowards from Hell is not an angry record at all. It's just fantasy.
It's like fantasy. It's like, let's have a good time. We're fucking playing cool metal. It's
Right.
great.
And so, put into a box.
That means nothing at all to anyone out of context, but I'm here for it.
I can't imagine that like this isn't for the non-Pantera fan.
That first album was like cheesy in a way that I can get behind.
Right. And I think that like Dime actually wrote a lot of the lyrics on that.
Probably.
Because I remember hearing like an interview snippet where Phil talked about Vulgar was the first time where he was like really got to like do his thing or whatever. And Vulgar's really just like aggro fucking word salad.
Yes.
But it's not very personal. It's very preachy. And that's why I don't like it.
It's like a lot of projection.
Yeah.
It's not.
And
Okay.
Yeah.
but then Far Beyond Driven gets more personal, and it's very inward. And it's like there's songs about like child abuse. There's like about being abused. There's it's all, and so like it's all very grimy, but it's very personal. And then Trendkill is still like it's a healthy mix of like being angry like at society and shit, and then being like, yeah man, being fucking drug addict sucks. Like, and but it's still personal, so I still like dig it. But it's still like there is still a big like triggered fucking like, it's like Phil doesn't know what to be angry at. So he's like, I guess our brand is being angry at the trends.
Right.
And it's like kind of it's stupid, but it also at the same time, like magazines were making a lot of money off of like alternative versus metal. Like you felt like you had to pick. Like that was like when we were kids, you felt like you even had to pick if you liked Pearl Jam or Nirvana. You felt like you weren't allowed to like both.
When I got into high school, a dude literally walked up to me with a Pearl Jam t-shirt on and said, "Hey man, who do you like better, Pearl Jam or Nirvana?"
What?
And because he had the t-shirt on, I was a fucking like freshman in high school. I was like, well, fucking Pearl Jam probably. And of course I was wrong and dumb, and that wasn't really what I thought. Like I like Nirvana better, but not that that's the right answer. This is what I thought actually.
They're both amazing. But it turns out
that absolutely happened. Like
right, that was part of the climate of the time, and so it was hard to tell. It was this weird thing where it's like, is Phil reacting to this, or is Phil helping to create this? And it's hard. It was honestly like hard to tell because it's, if you give him the benefit of the doubt, you're like, well, he's not mad at people who actually like Nirvana.
Yeah.
Per se, he's mad at the way the suits are responding.
Yeah, he's mad at this nebulous trend.
He's mad at like the business, like the businessmen, like that aspect that are sort of watching the numbers. I mean, like, well, fuck metal, no money for those guys. We're gonna give, like, instead of giving money to, so Suffocation can record at More Sound again for their second album, we're going to give money to this no-name band who barely has 3 songs because they're alternative, And so, but anyway, nonetheless.
They had a lot of flannel shirts.
Funny enough, you see Pantera wear a lot of flannel.
That's
like
good
eventually
point.
Phil had a lot of flannel shirts as well.
Yeah, and like, honestly,
is the trend really dead, Phil?
Or are you wearing it?
Honestly,
if by trend you mean flannel.
that's actually a key to me. That's a key aspect in Pantera's success is their image and how they had like a very relatable street, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I'm using that very loosely.
Yeah.
Street image.
Yeah.
They
were like everymen who drank Busch Light or whatever, and were from North Texas, like
right.
They were like approachable almost.
Yeah.
Because probably partially due to the quadrant idea, maybe, because I think the more detached from maybe or like aloof or cold or stoic or whatever like a band is, the more unapproachable they might seem as individuals. But if someone's just going like, I fucking hate fucking shit, bro.
Because this is the thing, man. Like being my first concert being Pantera and White Zombie in '96 and seeing Phil, like the way that he interacted with the crowd, he just talked like someone who was like you were hanging out having beers and just jamming your favorite like Ozzy and Alice in Chains covers, and then in the middle of it, whatever, just someone fucking caught the spirit and they just had something they needed to get off their chest. That's how it felt. Like it felt like a really big living room. And that was incredibly like endearing. And there was something like really special about that, And so when he talked about like Load being a shitty album, he was talking about it as a fan. He wasn't, and he wasn't talking about it as like trying to like a beef or like trying to fuck over Metallica or anything like that. He was like just having like, and that was the thing that made him so special. And that was one of the things that made Pantera concert so special is that it felt, it still had this element of danger. You didn't know what Dimebag was going to play in like the second verse of Cowboys from Hell, but you knew it was going to be something different. On this record, it's cat scratch fever. Scat. It's cat scratch fever. When I saw him in '99, it was Carry On Our Wayward Son.
Wow.
You know, it was. I think there was another time it was "You Really Got Me." You know,
Checks out. Yeah.
and then that and then they go right back into Cowboy Some Hell. It's fucking masterful, and they might have practiced that, like, I don't know, 36 times and decided it before they even did the dress rehearsals for the tour or the tech rehearsals. But when you saw it, it felt like it was happening.
Yeah.
Right then. It felt like it felt like Vinny and Rex and Phil didn't know what Dime was going to decide to do there.
Yeah. Talking about this, thinking this through a bit more now, I really wonder how much of that aspect of Phil's, like, in the momentness
Right.
really came from Dime's influence. Is really what I wonder there, because he was the guy who was like, I'm gonna make this a fun place to be.
Right.
I want to make this a place where people want to be and see us do these things. And Phil just doesn't seem like that kind of person to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not that there wasn't some aspect of that, but like Dime was such a force of that in that band
Sure.
that I feel like he probably brought a lot of that out in other people too.
Sure. I
But-
mean, I will say though, like I've seen Phil with like Down, and
Yeah.
Phil still has like this really, or at the time he had this very like personal, like don't give a fuck. I've told a story before, but fuck it, I'm gonna tell it for you, Harrison, because I love you. So I saw him play with Down, and it was like halfway through the set when people start to get tired. And he was like, "Oh, Houston, let me hear you." And people were like, oh, is that all you got, Houston? Let me hear you. And he was like, all right, Houston, let me hear you. Let me hear you get as quiet as possible. On the count of 3, I want you hear you be as quiet as possible. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. This is dude in bag. He's not paying attention. He's like, you know what, Houston, I respect that. This next song is called Lifer.
Nice.
I mean, you can't argue with that, really.
And it's like, no other frontman has the balls to fucking do some crazy shit like that.
Yeah, you know he just thought of that right then and there. That was it.
Maybe he didn't, but it fucking felt that way to me as an audience member.
As long as it comes off like that, that's really what matters, I guess. Yeah.
You know, and that is
That's
like,
the thing about authenticity. When you can fake that, you got it made.
and so
Damn.
so that's why a lot of the rants on here are what become my favorite aspect. The other part of it is that none of the rants here go off the rails, and I've seen a lot of Phil's rants go off
Right.
the rails.
I mean, they were editing these for an album release. I'm sure they made that decision very consciously.
And also the part of it is that I like that, like, because I imagine Dime is the one who's putting this together, you know. I don't know. Yeah, fucking produced by Vinny and Dime. And so I imagine like they're keeping the rant before Suicide Note Part 1 of like, you know, what? Like they're like like they're keeping that in there. It's like, oh dude, Phil sounds like a total idiot.
Yeah.
You know, like the crowd doesn't respond to that at all. There's no game that we can put on these mics to make the crowd fucking understand what you just fucking said, Phil. We're leaving it because that's what you say every night.
Yep.
You know, it is funny though, because the rants are something that are very polarizing about this album. You'll hear a lot of people talk about like, oh, wish Phil would shut up. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's like
They're not what I'm here for. They're not the best part of the track, but they add something to it that is like undeniably valuable to the experience. You know what I mean?
right.
For better or worse, I guess. But
Right.
I like the fact that they're there.
It makes me so happy. It's a huge essential part of the record to me, and it's because it's a huge
Totally.
essential part of the live experience of seeing Pantera.
Yeah.
And you know, but like to take Phil to task, you know, like I think it was during the 95 tour, 95, like every stop on the tour or something, he had like a fucking, you know, like a white, like a black pride, white pride speech. So
Like, why don't we have White History Month, basically?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Or that type of thing?
Yeah. Like, it's very, I mean, I talked about it before, but it's very much in that, like, I'm not racist, but I'll be good goddamned if I have to hear black people talk about racism affecting them.
Yeah.
Is very much in that kind of energy, you know? And it's like, it wouldn't be a big deal if you weren't playing in like one of the best fucking bands in the world and you're like, stop the show. So that, because I got something to say about black entertainment television. Because if you had white entertainment television, you know, and so,
I mean,
but like,
it would still be a deal, but no one would hear about it.
yeah, and
White
it's,
entertainment television, also known as the rest of the channels. Like, I don't know.
every other
All of the
fucking
other
channel.
Also known as wet.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah,
Be on
we don't want
wet.
that. We don't want that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but it's almost like this weird sort of like catch-22 and like, yeah, man, the good is that you get like this dude who's free will and speaking his mind. And then it's like, oh, well, he's gonna fucking speak his mind. And he's feeling real confident. So he's gonna talk about all the dumb shit he thinks too.
Yep.
So that's like an aspect of it too. But yeah, one of my other favorites was Suicide Note Part 2 also. So
that's your second one?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, what was another one that you really dug on here?
Where You Come From.
Nice.
So this is one of my favorite Dime solos. And it's got such an awesome outro. This song. So, this song is incredible. This is, depending on the day you ask me, this might be the definitive Pantera track. Straight up. Period.
I respect it. You know what? I respect
I respect that.
It's interesting because I not really having like the memory of like this listening to this album, you know, front and back.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to the last couple songs and I didn't really recognize them, I was like, oh, these sound kind of cool, and then that was it. Like that's all I have on 15 and 16. And I feel sad about it now. I feel like, okay, maybe I should go back and listen to this again.
I mean, so I listened to this a lot back in the day, and I don't listen to a lot of metal much these days regularly, past like decade plus, really. So going back to listen to this again, I was so fucking pleased when I got to the last two tracks of this album. I was so happy with how cool these songs were.
You know why? Because you know what comes next, and you know these two tracks are better.
That is a part. Well,
Swan
okay.
song.
I mean, we'll get there. And I came at this project with a very open mind, I will say.
So did I, and
But-
I was.
But
Anyway.
I am so fucking happy with how great these last two songs are.
Yeah.
Because these are the last two tracks they recorded right around the same time they recorded Trendkill, right? They recorded
Like
these
a
on
year
tour.
later.
Yeah, they recorded these on tour.
On the Trendkill tour, like 96 or whatever.
But
Go ahead.
But these songs are like, and I think part of it is also because I watched the home videos so much. Have you ever watched the home videos?
I don't. If I have I might as well say no because I don't remember.
See,
That's fine, because we were stupid outliers where we watched them way too much.
Yeah. Like they were a part. Like those videos are just as important as each album
Pretty much.
is to
yeah.
us in the canon of
Yeah.
Pantera. Like
Yeah.
the lines and the jokes. Like here's how much of a dork I am. When I went to Ozfest 99, okay, I'm looking up on the hill. Okay, we're in San Antonio. I look up on the hill and I'm like, holy shit, that's Big Val.
Full Big Val.
And so,
No one knows what that means.
big boy. So
Yep.
Big Val is like, he did security for Pantera. So there's a whole like,
okay.
there's so many sections. There's like a whole lot of screen time devoted to Big Val. So I go up to this big giant man.
Oh no, you really?
Really?
How did I never hear about this?
I don't know. and I'm like, what's up, Big Val? And he's like, hey, kid. And I had like this conversation with him. He's their fucking, he's just a security guard. He's just a random fucking, you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's how ingrained, like to me, it was like, you know, Don, Vinny, Phil, Rex, Big Val.
He
Like-
was a guy that you knew who he was. Like
Right, yeah.
he was
like,
a character in this like charade.
Yes,
you know?
in this like theater of like performative, like
Yeah,
you know, like performative sort of vagabond masculinity. Like he
Yeah.
was an A-list player. Like if I had to choose between like shaking hands with Ozzy or Big Val, I might have still chosen Big Val.
I would have chosen Big.
So just as like how canon
Yeah.
those videos were.
Yeah. So like there's at least one major part in the video in 3 specifically because that was when this album came out. But they do things like they'll intersperse parts of their songs over video footage just like for effect, and it's
So
really
good.
it's really well done. But there's a part where they play like various parts of where you come from just over the video stuff. Yeah, there you go. And like because I've watched those videos so many times, that part of that song is ingrained in my mind, or multiple parts of that song. But also, I mean, we'll get to it with my next selection as well. But like these last 2 songs are so like full of energy,
Yeah.
and they feel like, especially juxtaposed with the next album, they feel like they wanted to be here playing this shit. They feel like they really like had something like we want to go in the studio and do this right the fuck right now.
Yeah, man. So I would put one of my picks as like I Can't Hide.
Me too. That's my 3rd one.
Nice. I appreciate you, sir. I see you. I recognize you. I appreciate you, and I love you.
Like, man, these last 2 tracks were so fucking cool.
That outro of I Can't Hide might be like one of the best fucking things ever fucking recorded.
It's really good,
And
man.
yeah, no, man.
What is this thrash punk track with an incredible breakdown outro?
It's so fucking good, man. It's probably that's one of my like if you like put a gun to my head and like you have to tell me your top 5 Pantera tracks, I Can't Hide will probably be in there.
Like these 2 tracks are in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Like, easily.
So is this the only album that those 2 songs are officially recorded on?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
They recorded these 2 songs on tour for Trendkill.
Yeah, like did them in like 10 days.
Yeah.
Like like they went in the studio and then like, oh okay, yeah, that's done. You know.
Because I was pretty like confident that I was very familiar with their studio albums.
Right.
Yeah.
And then honestly, because I just really didn't listen to this album back in the day, when I heard those 2, I was like, what the fuck are these? And
Fair.
like I was distracted and I was like, okay, I should probably go re-listen to these again.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah.
And the other thing too, like I noticed about the lyrics is that these are this feels like the last time that Phil writes personal lyrics
Yep.
because he OD'd like the night after I saw him. Like because they played in Houston and then they played in Dallas and he OD'd after that show.
Was that when he like died basically for like a few minutes or whatever?
Yeah.
Yes. And then I don't know the exact dates, but he was back on tour within like 3 days of that, which is fucking insane. Like the audio for this that you hear, that happened after that. Like a lot of that happened. A lot of this was recorded after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you know, like these lyrics are all about that. The lyrics in these 2 songs are all about his overdose. And it feels like it's the last time that Phil was really personal in Pantera with his lyrics.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons that the songs are so endearing to me. And musically, musically, this is the most important thing to me. Musically, they're different
Yes.
than what they've done.
They're different, but also they're still very Pantera in a way.
Right.
I think I Can't Hide maybe less so until the end, but like Where You Come From is like that's all of Pantera like distilled to me.
Right. Sure. Sure.
But yes, also agreed.
So, all right. What were some of your other favorites on this?
Yes.
Well,
Harrison?
I actually, so I do actually really like the Cowboys from Hell version on this one because back to my earlier point about like they just play the song so accurately that I'd almost rather just listen to the album. But that one, what I like about it is they slow it a little bit. Like, I feel like the tempo is not as fast as Cowboys from Hell.
Okay.
And I dig it because it's not like a lot slower, but it just has a little bit more stank on it, and it's like fun. It's like different. It's like unique a little bit. It's like novel, I guess.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
I really like how in the second half of the second verse they get all like heavy and quarter note with it. You know,
Dun 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 dun.
Like,
yeah.
It's great.
You know, like to me, that's like every time I listen to the album version, when it gets to that, I'm like, well,
I'm waiting for that.
I'm waiting for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like
That's
so
what I
much
mean.
of the idiosyncrasies and the performance gestures of this record have become canon.
Totally.
To me.
See, the big difference is I don't have that experience. So it was almost like listening to a new like CD of theirs, but it's
Right.
all old songs for me.
Yeah. That's
Interesting.
rad. That's
But I will
rad.
also say that A New Level is fucking badass too. I like the way it kicks off.
I was very clear in not including New Level in my favorite tracks. We both were for Vulgar Display of Power, but I feel
In fact, I put it as the one I didn't. My
yeah, you might have put it as your throwaway. You put it as your throwaway
yeah,
track.
because I was going, I don't know.
But man,
It sounds badass live.
the live version of it and like
It just sounds unhinged. Like it's about to
Yes.
just fucking. It's like a freight train that's about to run off the rails. Like it's so good.
and that like all and to me a big part of it is the shit that Phil's doing. Like, cause he's just go, change, you know, like that shit. Like before, that's like, what are you even? That's not what. and it to me it captures. Like I just cannot fucking describe to you, Harrison, what a Pantera concert felt like,
Yeah.
because no other concert has ever felt like that. Like I remember, so I saw them in '97 at Westfields, this like big, like it's like a mini Woodlands Pavilion outdoor arena out in Houston, okay, and like half of the curtain fell down on accident. Okay.
Like before they started playing.
Before they started playing, and even before the show, like Phil was coming out and like creeping behind the curtain and just like waving at people, you know, just like clapping and just like, hey, like just shit that I've literally never seen anyone else do. And then half of the curtain falls, like because they were playing like Good Friends and a Bottle of Pills for the intro, you know, like through the PA or something, and like half of the curtain falls, like totally unprofessional and bullshit. You see a roadie run across and pull the rest of the curtain down, and like Dime's like, fuck it, and he just walks out and starts waving at people. And then like, you know, and then everyone else fucking comes out, and then Vinny's on a drum riser that goes almost all the way up to the fucking lighting rig, which is like the dumbest but coolest shit that I've ever seen. And they like just start playing Walk. They're like, fuck it, you know, and it's just like, it just felt so like almost improvised, like just so lackadaisical, just so shoot from the fucking hip, you know. They played Hard Lives and Sunken Cheeks. It felt like they were just playing whatever the fuck they wanted. They played Planet Caravan. Phil laid down.
Oh wow.
He just laid down.
Great.
Wow.
He just fucking laid down on the middle of the fucking stage, man. They were doing some other shit, and like Rex is like fucking walking around with his bass like a fucking idiot, just like doing this like stupid fucking like chicken walk step shit.
Yeah.
Everything about it just felt so energetic. It felt so inspired. It felt so unpredictable. It felt dangerous. You like when they came out for an encore, it felt like it was a real encore. It, you know, like
Right.
it was like the perfect fucking.
I'm genuinely sad. I'm genuinely very sad that I never got to experience that.
It's you know, thank you, Heidi. Thank you to my older cousin Heidi who took me to those first two
Shout out
Pantera
to Heidi.
shows. Shout out to fucking Heidi.
Well, I do want to say one more thing about this, though, at least, but it related to the live show, is that I think that even though I'm not a huge fan of like live metal albums, I think this is the best possible version of a live Pantera album that could have been made. I think, right?
I would agree with that.
To me, the only competitor for like live metal albums, is the Metallica live shit Binge and Purge Mexico City CD. That's the only competitor to this. It's still a definite second to me, but it's the only competitor because it's difficult to pull off live metal records.
Yeah.
Oh, one more random comment on this one that bugs me though.
Yeah.
And this is such a stupid like nerdy thing. And that's not even that nerdy. But because there's only one guitar player and it's basically mixed in the center and there's no stereo guitar, that it's a bummer to me. It's like hard for me. It like doesn't sound as good.
It's one of the things I really like about this record
Yeah.
because I feel like you can
Figured you
really
would.
hear Rex playing.
Oh, interesting.
So because I feel like in the rest of Pantera's catalog, Cowboys from Hell is really the only one where Rex really gets to fucking shine. because on Vulgar is
The
where-
last 2 songs on here, he fucking is all
he
over the place.
really does.
He's all over. He fucking starts off. I can't hide. Yeah. That I think it's the only. Well, I mean, technically, Vinny starts it off with the, but
Whatever.
Rex really starts. Like, I think it's the only Pantera
Cha
track.
cha cha.
I'm pretty sure.
You are right. You're right. You're right.
I think that's the only Pantera track that bass starts it.
Yeah, man.
If I think, yeah.
Because if you go back and you listen to Cowboys from Hell, like bass carries so much of that. And once they sort of filled out, like, because I remember seeing an interview where on Vulgar they started using more of the room mics for the guitar tone, so it becomes bigger. But because of that, you lose a little bit of the bass. You lose a little bit of the presence of the bass. And so Rex doesn't ever shine as much as he does on Cowboys from Hell. And so, and I really like that you get more Rex on this. So the single guitar doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
What was it? The mixing though, or was it? It was the channel mixing.
Well, I think that I'm no audio engineer, but I feel like if there's only one guitar, you can't make a stereo like. You either have to pan it to one side slightly, or it's going to be in the center.
Right.
But you just lose some of the wideness of the mix because there's just you can't double the presumably on all their albums they double the guitars, at least once. So there's stereo effect, but there's no guitar stereo effect here because there's just one guitar. Gotcha. Even if you had 2 mics and you pan them, the phasing wouldn't it's still gonna sound like it's in the center, right? I think.
Right.
So it sounds flat to me, like the guitar is just right in the middle. So it's like missing something, like from a mix dynamic or like wideness perspective to me.
That's interesting.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Is there any other sort of random blurbs you want to throw in about this, Robert?
I forgot to bring up on Where You Come From. There's a lyric that just says, "You call that supernatural? It ain't." Okay, sure.
I fell in front of my friends.
Yeah.
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 I just can't stress enough how pleased I am with those last 2 tracks and how much I enjoy them.
I second that, and it really makes me wonder what Pantera album we would have gotten.
That's a great question.
If Reinventing would have been recorded in like 97, 98, as opposed to 99, 2000,
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, because these 2, because I love these 2 tracks.
So to quickly, because we already talked about it a little bit, but to quickly hit the one that I would get rid of, I guess, from this.
Sure.
This was really the Sophie's choice for me of like, I couldn't really pick anything, but I picked Cowboys from Hell because they play Cat Scratch Fever, and then fuck that song.
Yeah, fuck that new Jim, right? Yeah.
That's really all I've got.
Yeah, like that's an interesting thing. Like Cowboys from Hell and Cemetery Gates are definitely
See, I almost went with Cemetery Gates simply because it can't possibly stand up to the album version.
Yeah.
But Phil does like a surprisingly good job at like an attempt here.
Sure.
Given what he's got with his vocal range at this point.
Sure.
So I was like,
I mean, for me, that's just because Cemetery Gates has never been one of my favorite songs. But yeah, it's interesting with Cowboys from Hell because in one sense, I feel like it's essential because it has 2 of the things that really capture that Pantera live show injury, which is like, we're going to throw a different fucking song in here. And then also we're going to really change up how we articulate this particular section.
yes. That kind of shit, whenever they pull that off on this entire set is amazing. I think.
Right. Like the end of Becoming when you get the throw.
Yep.
Where you get the outro to Throes of Rejection.
Oh,
Yes.
And so, but yeah, like Cowboys from Hell is kind of like towards the bottom
because it's pretty great still, but I was like, I don't know, I don't like Cat Scratch Fever. I don't think, but they also covered that song separately,
right?
On some sound the Detroit Rock City soundtrack. I don't know what the fuck
doesn't matter. But yeah, another thing that I really do like about it is because like Southern trend fill is my favorite fill. So hearing all the songs with that fill on them,
I was gonna bring up something similar. Yeah.
Okay.
like hearing like even the Far Beyond Driven stuff, hearing like the like Fry screams at the end of 5 Minutes Alone with trend fill stylings or New Level with trend fill, that's like, yes, that's my favorite. So I feel like I am uniquely poised to love this record because Trendkill is my, I don't think it's the best Pantera record,
Right.
but it's my favorite. I think Far Beyond Driven is objectively their best. That's my 2 cents.
I think that's where I ranked. I think that was my number 1 too.
Right. So like,
but it's not your number 1 though. You're saying it's objectively the number 1, but it's subjectively not. It's Trendkill is your number 1.
Did I have a good fucking time listening to Far Beyond Driven 2 weeks ago. Like, man, picking a track to throw away on that one was the hardest for me of anything. Yeah. There was I was like, oh God, well, it's just I like the drum. It's gonna be between these two, and I like the drum fill in that one better. So it was just almost impossible. But like so this record being recorded on the tour, because like singers' voices change throughout albums. Like the Slipknot live album was recorded on like the Volume 3 tour, so the vocals are all weird because Corey's doing that. He's doing the Volume 3 voice on everything, so it's a little goofy in some of the stuff. Yeah. And so it's almost like a live album sort of depends on, so much of your enjoyment of a live album depends on like where the singer's at. That's why the like, the Live Shit Binge and Purge Metallica album, the box set is done during the Black Album tour, so you get to hear Creeping Death with Black Album James' voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting.
And you also
dynamic.
get to hear like Jason Newsted. You get to hear Jason Newsted backing vocals, die, motherfucker. Anyway, that's like, to me, that's canon in Creeping Death.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't do it without that.
Speaking of backing vocals, I wanted to shout out the backing vocals from Dime on I'm Broken.
Yeah.
Because he does a little, because it's like force fed to make him inbred, but he does a little scoop. Inbred.
Yeah.
It's really good. It like
Nice.
really works in
Have
there.
you seen like the OG footage of him like doing Seek and Destroy?
No.
Dude.
I don't think I have.
Dude. He can do a perfect Hetfield.
Wow.
It sounds exactly like Hetfield doing Seek and Destroy.
Nice.
So
I'll have to find that.
yeah.
And the only other thing I want to shout out is in Dom Hollow when they switch into Hollow and Phil goes, "That's fucking badass!" Yeah. It's one of those.
Just along for the ride.
It's that other time, yeah.
It's so like
I was like, that. Oh, you guys did that? That's fucking badass. You guys see this shit? That's fucking badass.
it's
Guys, I'm in Pantera. This is fucking bad. This rocks. This shit rocks.
You guys heard of Pantera?
I'm
They're
in that shit.
They're
I'm
right.
in fucking Pantera.
They're playing right behind me here.
Yeah, and like
mm.
that's again the thing that makes like Phil the perfect frontman is because he like plays that role as a stand-in. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. One of the only other things I was wondering if you noticed this is like, because in Sandblast that like really showcases Vinny's fucking goofball foot technique, and I don't know if you picked up on that.
I probably not.
So when he does, I talked about this a bit the last episode. So, but here we go. So, like when you have like a, he doesn't play it like that. He plays right. He plays left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right. Okay, that's like how Becoming works. Like. And so like Sandblast's gonna have that, blah, 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 like that whole thing. And if you listen to it, you can hear that like that like so every now and again that second, that third note's a little close together than it should be, and you can like totally
That's
like,
fascinating.
Oh yeah, because you're not doing it like You're not doing it right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And so, I mean, part of it's like that's so cool that y'all like left that in there, also. But it's also like a little bit. It also is. I don't know. It's an interesting like performance gesture, right? You also hear it a lot on Tranquil when he does those kind of rhythmic figures. You can like tell that those second and the third notes are a little bit closer together than the first and the second notes. Yeah. But
that's really interesting because I always noticed even on the studio albums that his double kick, like he kind of, it felt like he was avoiding certain types of double kick patterns. That's what it felt like to me.
Yes,
because it's like he didn't need to. There was no reason for them to be like there's no reason for Pantera to ever do that.
On that note,
but I felt like he was avoiding it.
on that note, fucking Hostile. He doesn't play on this record, on the live record. He doesn't play it how he plays it on Folger.
Yeah, in the very few like times in their discography where they do like I don't know, would that be 16th note or whatever,
right.
like a type of thing. It's always very infrequent and it's very short duration, and I feel like he always stops on the last snare.
Yeah,
or something. You know, it's like he never quite just follows through. So I can't put my finger on it, but I think maybe maybe it's very uncomfortable for him. It's not like a technique that he ever really
it's
like
never
mastered.
Like a sustained thing. It's like a burst.
Yeah. It wasn't like a priority for his playing style or whatever.
Right. Like the fastest that you hear Vinny go for a consistent period of time is in Heresy, which that song's around like 170. And you hear him like throw that double bass on for like that, like kind of like bop, 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 like that kind of like super skank beat.
Oh,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's really like the fastest sustained double bass that you hear Vinny do.
A few triplet things here and there, like here and there, but like
so like in
that,
Shattered you hear that, but it's like more mid tempo. You know.
Yeah.
And he does that a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so it is an interesting thing because fucking Hostile has that on the album. That's how it is. But that's not what he plays on the fucking on the live. He plays. It's hard for me to tell. I'd have to like really listen to it. He's either playing like kind of like right left, you know, like snare kick, or he might even be doing like triplets. You know what I mean? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. He might mix it up. But yeah, like, and I don't know if that's like something that like fell out of his wheelhouse or anything, but it is interesting though to me, you know, and that kind of like relates to some of the stuff I have to say about reinventing. But anyway, yeah, man. So yeah, to me, this is one of the best live records ever fucking made.
Yeah, this is like I said, this is the Pantera album I would pick. Straight up.
Fucking what do you want to fucking hear? It's okay to curse.
You paid good money to curse.
Breathe in, take your bullshit breath, blow it on the person next to you.
Man, imagine saying that shit today.
Dude, I fucking love that. Dude, like when our record came out at 1, put all the commercial shit in its fucking place.
One fucking shit, I like it.
I fucking like it. Like that.
God.
Dude, those things are just so endearing to me, man.
They are to me too. Like I said,
So,
like all that shit is what I think about when I hear these songs now.
Right.
And that's just, yeah.
So
it's not because it's better than the album version. It's just like for something, it does something.
It
somehow works.
It really does.
I don't know.
And so, and even the album art, like in these pictures, because information about how they played and like Vinny, because Vinny was like my fucking top tier motherfucker. And it was so hard to get like, you know, like I couldn't look for drum playthroughs. I remember trying to decipher these photos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like,
how do I get better by looking at this one like stylized shot in the gatefold of the CD?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
God
this
damn it.
Stupid fucking dime shot where he's just like, oh.
So.
Because you know he wasn't angry.
Dead Time is not an angry person.
Not even close.
Right. So,
Good
but,
times.
But yeah, man.
This was the last thing that they did where they felt like they really wanted to be doing Pantera shit.
Well, it's a thing.
Is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's the last thing that happened where we were still in the moment of Pantera. Is I think what it is, and so by the time that Reinventing the Steel came out, we had already moved on to like Slipknot. We're already into heavier shit.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I'm not. Okay.
So you don't think it's the context and the what we talked about earlier about like when you came to enjoy Pantera originally.
Well,
you think
yeah.
it's just a shit record?
No, I think it's that we came to enjoy them when they didn't suck.
My overall thought,
Touche.
like I thought about this a lot today. I was like, how do I really want to describe this album like in an overall sense? Because it could go like, I could be lenient or I could be like way too overbearing, but
Yeah.
I think this is just a bad album. I think this feels like the B-sides. I think this feels like they over the years they collected a pile of B-sides that they didn't want to put on their other albums, and then they recorded them eventually. But not like fun B-sides where sometimes the B-side can eclipse what's on the A-side. I think these are just the things that they didn't really want to do, and they eventually did them. And they
eventually did them.
and that's how I kind of feel about this album overall. I think this is a bad set of songs, set of recording, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't like saying that at all. I kind of hate saying that.
So Harrison, your general impression of Reinventing the Steel?
I mean, I always really liked it. Actually, yeah, and I still do. I actually think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's like even bad pizza is still pretty good. Like even
Right.
bad Pantera is like fucking better than 90% of other shit out there.
This is very, very true.
Also, you're not wrong.
Right. But compared to Far Beyond Driven and stuff like that. But honestly, like I feel like because one of the things that I really like about Pantera, they like was the groovy kind of slow like I always like the southern like twangy and like kind of badass like and there's not a lot of that on here. This is fairly like straightforward almost. There's not a lot of character. It's not as dynamic, but it still is like a lot of really cool riffs to me. I like a lot of the riffs a lot.
Right.
I love the production actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's very different though.
I'm gonna vehemently disagree with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well,
statement.
because it doesn't sound like a Pantera record. It does. It's not scooped or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't have like the drums don't sound like there's quarters super glued to the beaters.
Right.
This
yeah.
sounds like an adult recorded it. Well, I love,
Damn.
I love the other albums like more, but I'm just saying like I don't think it sounds really like tight. I think.
As a drummer, I
was
feel
that?
like the album suffers from how good the drums sound.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
It definitely,
do.
it's not dynamic. It's not a dynamic album.
So my blurb about this album is that it's vulgar without the bite or the dynamics. Is my blurb.
I think this album sounds like shit.
There's also the Terry Date remix, which sounds better.
Yeah, I was
Really?
jamming when I was re-listening to it. I was like going kind of A and B, and I kind of like. I think I kind of like that one.
The Terry Date remix is better.
The
I
Like
should go
on the,
find that.
Yeah. On the original mix, you're like, "Dad, that snare sounds good," but it feels like there's something missing.
There are
to me.
there are certain aspects of it that do sound like almost objectively good, like for as much as that really means.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it doesn't sound like a
dude,
Pantera album.
You could fucking like record Dime and Vinny and Rex with a fucking coffee can, and it's gonna sound objectively good.
Yeah.
In a sense.
in a sense, yeah.
You know.
But like I don't like a lot of what Dime has recorded on this album.
This is interesting. So, like, I went into this is so fascinating. I love this shit. Just thank you guys so much because I fucking love unpacking this shit to this degree. I really, really do. It makes me so happy. Thank you guys so fucking much for being here. Because when I had an idea in my head about how I was going to think about this, how I was going to think about reinventing, because I knew how I thought about it historically,
Right.
which was fuck that album. Because to me, Trendkill being the first, the first, probably the absolute first album I bought on the day that it came out. That album became not just a template for what new Pantera albums should be. It became a template for what all new albums should be, which is this like challenging experience, this artistic experience, this reaction to an artist's previous catalog, this pushing forward, win, lose, or draw. Like, you might fall flat on your face, but you push forward and you evolve. And so this album, when I heard it, it felt like just a regression. It felt like such a safe, boring, lazy record to me when I heard it the first time. And so when I went into, but I listened to it a few years ago, I was like, man, it's pretty fun. It's fun. And so when I was like really anticipating, and I even wrote it down, man, like, I was like, this is so much better than I remember. I understand why I didn't like it, but I think objectively, it's one of their most consistent albums. Great riffs, lyrics are more relatable and less grimy without being as preachy as vulgar.
True.
But then you after I listened to it a few times, then I'm like, how's my week been? Kind of bad, because I've been forcing myself to listen to this record. After the effort put into the songwriting and performances of Far Beyond Driven and the layering and atmosphere of Trendkill, something about this feels lazy. It's like vulgar without the bite or dynamics. And I was like almost disappointed that I ended up back at the same opinion that I had, because I was really hoping that I had grown as a person. But I don't know, man. It just, when I listened to it the first time, I was like the novelty of yeah, this is cool riffs, this is cool vibe, this is cool groove. It's nice to hear Phil in a different headspace. And then the second time, I'm like, dude, fuck all this. I'm like, this is, I want it, because the thing is I don't believe this. I don't believe Phil on a lot of this.
I agree with that.
I believe Phil on the second Down record that came out a year or two after this.
2 years after, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. 2 years.
I only know because I checked that today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me personally, that's a big aspect of this. Is it, we'll grind that axe for a long time, or it's like, come on, guys.
But what's okay, to me, all of his lyrics are kind of silly and cheesy. How's that so much worse objectively?
To me, man, the lyrics on Far Beyond Driven and Trendkill are really personal and authentic, even if they miss the mark or they're misguided in a sense, or they're whatever. It feels like on Far Beyond Driven, it feels like he's trying to reach deep and say the darkest, most intense thing that he can. And that's definitely not what he's doing here.
Yeah.
And there's nothing on here that's personal. I almost wonder if Dime wrote a lot of the lyrics on this or something.
Yeah.
Or
that's true.
Or if Dime was like, look, Phil, we're tired of your fucking drug songs.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Because there's none of that on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's but that was and it's such a catch-22, because part of what Phil's thing was his shtick, why you related to him when he was the front man and speaking his mind in front of 10,000 people, is oh, that dude's being sincere. And you're gonna tell me fucking Death Rattle Shakes is goddamn sincere? I'll run headfirst into traffic. There's no telling what I'll do. I know those are two different songs, but
Yeah.
Uplift, definitely my trash track. Definitely
Really?
throw the fuck away on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, fair enough.
Yeah.
I thought, just a quick note, since the album came out, for 22 years, I thought he was saying Death Rattle Snakes. It's no less sensical either way, but
it's a little more metal imagery than Death Rattle Shakes.
I don't know.
Cha-cha-cha.
Exactly. Bring it back around. Yeah. No, I agree fully that this album doesn't feel. None of this feels like they mean it in any sense to me. It kind of feels like it almost feels like they had to record this, and they phoned it in a way. It just doesn't feel like they wanted to be here playing these songs.
Whereas, and I mean, and part of it, like, why does this album feel flat to us is because every one of their albums was such a unique goddamn statement.
Yeah.
Like I feel terrible shitting on a Pantera album, just like as a general rule. But you can go listen to like 7 hours of us praising all of their other shit, so that you know that I'm not just being an asshole about
right.
this
Yeah,
one.
we're not like trying to hot take this shit like this.
No,
you know.
well,
So-
but I think, if anything, I'm the one with the hot take because everyone hates it.
I'm
Who's
very-
a Pantera fan, you know? Like,
I'm very
Does
interested.
everyone? I don't really know.
Well, so to
I
contrast,
think most really legit Pantera fans don't like it, like you guys.
Old.
I'm not at that level. I
Old
love
motherfuckers.
Pantera and I listen to
By
the shit out of
legit,
them,
he
but-
means old.
old man. So to contrast your take on this album, or your approach to this album,
Yeah.
when this album came out, I was like, this is a new Pantera album. I love Pantera. I want to like this album.
Yeah.
And so I told myself, for whatever it was worth, like, I like a lot of this stuff on this album. I learned Revolution is my name.
Right.
That's a great fucking song to play. It's so fun to play. And I like found stuff about it that I liked. Like I latched onto the shit that I did like about it. And then I just kind of like let it go. Over the years, I was like, that album's fine. And then when I came back to it to listen for this, I was like, my instincts were correct at the time that this is not a great album.
Yeah.
And so I did find myself wrapping back around to, like you said, it turns out I'm there
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't feel bad about it though. Like it just is what it is.
Yeah, I went through different phases where at first I was like, meh, okay, I like it because it's Pantera, right? But this isn't hitting me the other way. And then like a few years later, I was like, fuck that album. And then a few years later, I was like, you know what? It's really cool though to hear Dime and Vinny and how they like approach these things and these riffs as musicians and da 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 da. And now I'm like kind of back around to like, fuck that album. But it's tricky because you don't want to like, it's so hard to sort of, because these guys, it's our experience, like yours and mine, our experience as musicians, as playing metal music is inseparable from our association, our influence with Pantera. It's absolutely inseparable.
Mm-hmm.
And so to shit on anything they've ever done in any way, it hurts me a little.
Because you're kind of shitting on yourself a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
It feels that way.
And so, but nonetheless, man, like it's man.
Like it's partially just like what's there, but it's partially expectation because they spent the previous 8 years like putting out the best metal that's ever been made, like consistently. Like
Right.
we just listened to the first 4 or 5 things they released, and they're just like, those are things I could put on from front to back at any given time and enjoy all of it. I
It's
wouldn't
all
skip
so
a single
good.
thing.
It's all so good.
Yeah.
It's also even the ones that even like the you know, like the track that I had, like the stuff that I had a problem with on Vulgar was mostly just because of the lyrics. And it's
Yeah.
like because of your fucking like problematic preachy fucking lyrics, Phil, which are mostly problematic because of the other shit you've done.
Yeah,
You
right,
know?
right.
Um,
Yeah, like in a vacuum, not as much, but given the context, like, fuck,
Yeah.
come on, man.
but then this is just it you know what, it almost feels like it's like, dude, y'all had like you were listening to the wrong fucking people. Like there were people, like you had people around you that were like, yeah man, like that Tranquil thing was cool, but you know you need to go more to the classic, you need to you know, like and
All right, I want to hear what Harrison has to say. About
yeah,
this,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm extremely interested. Like, yeah, I just want to hear what you think about this album.
I mean, I don't necessarily really disagree with anything you guys have said. And by the way, I mean, I would say if you added up all of your discrete complaints about it, at least 50% of them were how it's not as good as the previous albums, right? And now you made very specific and discrete complaints with the music itself, of course, lazy and stuff like that. And like I think maybe for me the laziness or
Also, I hate to say lazy, boring is what I would say.
Yeah, okay.
Because lazy implies like
Yeah, like when I say lazy, just like
phoning it in.
it's part of because like to me, like mix wise, this sort of reminds me of like Far Beyond Driven. Right? Far Beyond Driven feels very naked and very exposed. But the thing is that the songwriting and the performances on Far Beyond Driven are in the goddamn stratosphere. Okay? The songwriting on Trendkill is not as good. That's my favorite album. The songwriting isn't as good. But they almost make up for it with the vibe and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
This album has goddamn zero vibe. And like there's not as much. There's some, but there's not that layered approach to the vocals with Phil. Like everything feels just bare fucking bones. And so that's what I mean when I say lazy, I'm referring a lot to the production.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And everything that you just said, I think what I interpret that as when I listen to this is I think of it as efficient and muscular and like simple, but not in a bad way. I think of it in an efficient way.
If you're gonna do that, you gotta have like fucking ripping songs.
But I really like the riffs, and like for me, 60 to 75% of my appreciation of Pantera is just the riffs. And then the rest of it, minus a couple of percentage points, is Vinnie Paul. And then the remainder is like the combination of Phil and Rex. That's just the way my brain works.
I'll give you that because the riffs are great.
There are some really good riffs on this.
I don't agree. As a guitar player, I do not agree with this. But only like halfway.
Okay.
Because there are some amazing riffs on this.
Yeah.
But then there's stuff like, did I write it down? I didn't write it down. I think it's like the beginning of Yesterday Don't Mean Shit, where it's like dun dun dun. Is that song?
I think that's Goddamn Electric.
No. It's not that. Dun dun dun. No. So it's always dun 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 dun, and then it goes down like a half step, dun dun dun, and then it goes back up, dun dun dun, and that's the whole intro. I was like, what the fuck is that lazy shit? Because
I think that is goddamn like the part of me.
Yeah, and then it goes.
Am I crazy? Maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe you're right then.
And you probably think that riff is boring, right?
I just think it's like, what even is that riff?
It's cool.
You just played.
It's a cool riff.
You played a note and twice, and then you went down a half step, and you came back up. And he does it again later, in.
But even when even in that riff, he's not just going dun 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 dun. I'm not saying you don't hear this, but when I hear that,
no, say it.
He's doing a very subtle pull off. And it's very subtle. It's like one of those little things where he does like a quarter step bend. It's like a very subtle thing that he does with the guitar. It's not dun 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 dun. It's blam blam blam. He kind of does a very subtle pull off.
Yeah.
And to me, it's that's cool. And it's very subtle. And it sounds, even though it's a very simple just half step down and back up, it's a Dimebag version of that very simple half step and down and back up.
Okay. So maybe you're right. Maybe I'm hearing
it's
that
like
wrong.
it's so. I mean. It is simple, but he puts a little stank on it because it's fucking Dimebag.
So maybe you're right. I'll have to go back and listen to it with that in mind.
So what I would say,
I just don't think it's that good to do anyway.
Look, it's not I'm broken, but again, we're not talking about Far Beyond Driven.
What I would say in like my sort of like litany, like my breakdown of like the criteria which you judge which you judge albums by, right? Like. You have songwriting, performances, production, lyrics, vibe, and influence. Okay. So that would be like lazy songwriting, but the performance, like the way that Dime plays it. And to me, that's the only thing that makes this album fucking listenable is the way that Dime and Vinny play.
Right.
Yeah.
I freely admit that most of my appreciation of Pantera is probably on that superficial level. It's just the fucking riffs I think are cool, and they sound cool, and he plays them cool.
Right.
You know,
Fair.
even the boring ones are like kind of cool. Like I'm like, oh damn, I like the way he did that. Like it's very superficial for me. I fucking dig it. I like it.
Right.
And
yeah,
it just sounds it's stripped down to its barest elements in a way that to me is not uninspired as much as it is stripped down and simplified.
Right.
Because one of the complaints that I had about their previous albums, which again I think are better,
Sure.
they kind of tend to meander or like experiment in a way that's like I don't find very compelling sometimes.
Those are fighting words.
And like it's not all the time obviously, but like there are certain things that they do I'm just kind of like, oh, it just doesn't really work for me. Like I respect them for doing it, but it's just I don't like it. I don't care about it that much.
Right. Yeah.
But on this album, it's like they don't fuck around really. It's like the whole thing is just muscular, efficient, kind of cool riffs.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I really don't think you're wrong. And it's really unfortunate because we didn't get to hear what they did next.
Mm-hmm.
And if we got to hear what they did next and it went in another sort of like darker experimental, like, oh, I've never heard anything like that before, then this in the context of that might be
This could have been a transitional thing. Like this would, in
Right.
context, this might have been way better because then you're like, oh, I see that they were moving towards this direction, and then the next one was really
yes.
good, you know. But this was sort of
Yes.
like this was on the way from Trendkill to whatever the unnamed last album would have been. Or whatever.
Right.
Who
And
knows?
I will absolutely concede that possibility.
But honestly, as I've been sitting here and I've been thinking about the lyrics, I'm like, oh, those are dog shit lyrics. I'm like, what does he say? Like 68 into the world born, 70s a breath after the war. Like, what are you narrating Forrest Gump? Like the lyrics are dog shit.
Oh man.
Let the record show.
There's a line in "We'll Grind That X for a Long Time" where he says, "That smell in the air is chicken shit."
That smells
I
so.
don't know what he's talking about.
So like I almost put "We'll Grind That Axe" as one of my essential tracks, but I realized like no, I don't fucking like this song. But I like two of the hooks in this song. I like the but then it's like, wait a minute, that's kind of like a less cool version of Art of Shredding.
Yeah.
And then I like the like, we'll grind that axe, we'll grind that axe. You know, I like that.
Sure.
But yeah, as a song, like, well, and this other thing, like, I think like the last Black Sabbath album with fucking Ozzy was called Never Say Die.
Yes.
So just you can't put some shit out there like that because that's how you know it's the end.
Yeah.
Like Never Say Die. Oh, that's the last album y'all are gonna do. We'll grind that X for a long time. I fucking doubt it.
Yeah.
Well, you don't declare that you're reinventing the steel and then put this as your fucking album cover.
Yeah, what is the deal with this
fuck is
fucking
this
album
shit?
art? I never
It's
was.
a naked dude
What
with
is
this like
this?
junk like mosaiced out with
What
like
was-
a whiskey bottle.
What were they thinking?
What's mosaiced out is not his junk.
Is it
it's
not
The whiskey bottle or something?
Yeah, it's a wild turkey.
Oh, the bottle itself is mosaic
Yes,
out.
yeah, to avoid like trademark infringement.
But like I'm so confused about like what was the concept here?
It's really dumb.
That's it.
I think you're looking at it.
Is-
Yeah.
And I always want to say he's flipping the bird, but he's not actually.
Yeah, no. Like the best album cover that Pantera did, the best well-designed album cover they ever did is this. Is Official Live. That's the best.
Like artistically, well, fuck, I don't know.
Look at that.
It's that or Cowboys from Hell. It's one of the
Look
two.
at that, dude. Fuck you.
No.
Like Cowboys from Hell is
No, no,
good
no.
because it's bad.
I know. I'm dying on
Guys,
this hill.
how is this even an argument? There's literally a person getting punched in the face on one of their album covers. It's obviously that.
I mean,
they all have their pros and cons.
but I feel like that was a accident. Like that was a happy accident. But yeah, no, I mean he's right. That is the best.
Is this
one.
guy? Is it just a literal photo of a guy jumping through a bonfire or something? Like,
yes,
is that all
it's
it
like
is?
their fucking like
No, that's
sound
it.
tech. It's Sterling Winfield, whoever the fuck that is.
It's
Wow.
what?
It's just some dude they know.
it's bad.
You know,
It's real bad.
No, they don't do like I said it before. Of all the amazing things that Pantera does, album covers ain't one of them.
Not really one of them.
Like they had to be talked out of like a fucking raw ass sphincter with a drill in it for Far Beyond Driven. That was their original like pitch. Like, yeah, someone's spreading their hairy ass cheeks with a fucking drill in it. He's gonna go get an ass cheek. No, seriously, where's he going? Do you know?
I don't know.
All
Bathroom
right.
maybe.
Well, I hope he'll be back. But yeah, like that. I don't know if I should keep talking or if we should just wait.
Well, we can keep talking and then we can cut it out if we need to.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let's just not say anything good
But
or,
so, yeah,
or
we'll just
interesting.
so Robert just dipped out, so we're just gonna make sure we don't say anything that's worth keeping. But
Are
so,
you guys gonna do other? I'm assuming you'll do other series, like different like catalogs, or have you done other catalogs already?
We'll never do anything as exhaustive as Pantera,
Yeah.
just because there's no other band that is so
Yeah, who else would you do it with?
quintessential to our experience
Mhm.
as Pantera. Because for us, and being the age that we were and the time that we were, like, you had to have an opinion about every Pantera record.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it was just, and also, though, the thing is that, like, there wasn't a lot of, like, there was the new metal thing that was coming up but didn't really have a name yet. But, like, just like the people that would go to a Pantera show and a Slayer show, that's the thing, man. Dude, Slayer was playing clubs at this time.
Mm-hmm.
They were touring
That's
for
crazy.
Undisputed Attitude and playing fucking clubs.
It's wild.
And so Pantera really was the only band that was waving the flag, the like unapologetically metal flag. Like, there was no other band you could go see in an arena.
Mhm.
And so Pantera, whenever Pantera played, it was this gathering. It was this like,
Yeah,
this is like, maybe not all these people are into death metal, but like you had people that were into death metal, you had people who were into this, you had people on this, but everyone would fucking go
Yeah.
to see Pantera, Like, I remember going up in like 2001 to see the Pledge of Allegiance tour with like Slipknot, System of a Down, and Rammstein in Dallas at Reunion Arena. And fucking Dime was in the fucking audience.
Nice.
Just hanging out, having a good fucking time, And so much of Pantera is just married with our experience. There's no other band
no equivalent.
that we would be. The only other band that we would be able to do as much, even close to as much about, I guess, is maybe Metallica.
Yeah. can see that.
Maybe, like, I bet we'll end up doing a few episodes on Machine Head, because Machine Head is like just one of our favorite bands, but like nothing as exhaustive as what we're doing on Pantera.
Yeah. Agreed.
So something else I wanted to throw out about Reinventing the Steel is like the drumming. Okay. So the drumming is very clever, and it's like tasteful, and it's slick and whatnot, and it's interesting, and it's fun to listen to, and all that sort of stuff. But what Vinny did on Cowboys from Hell, like, I went and found an old like Modern Drummer interview. I was reading it the other day.
Modern fucking drummer.
Your boy, Modern fucking Drummer, the king of thrash metal drumming. I know what they're talking about. Sorry, more home video.
Video
folks.
shit.
I should go and watch those.
You should.
I bet it's gonna
I'm
be
sure
hit or
it-
miss.
No, I think it would be really fun actually.
There's moments in it that are like pure bliss, and I'm sure there's gonna be moments of like, okay.
Yeah.
But we're gonna do an episode about the home videos with Jet. So
Oh, nice.
this is gonna be a thing.
Nice.
I remember us hanging out and like watching one of them with Jeremy's like future wife, this like wonderfully like incredible singer, wonderfully educated woman from Spain named Itziar rather, and she was like, "Why would we watch this? They look like they smell bad."
She was not incorrect.
And, but so like the thing is like the way that Vinny played on Cowboys from Hell, it raised the bar on the level of not just on like the vocabulary of metal drumming, but also on like the precision of playing and the production of it. And then same thing on Far Beyond Driven. Like, he played things on Far Beyond Driven that still are not in the metal vocabulary. Like the break. I talked about it too much on the last episode, but like the breakdown in like Slaughtered, you know, the gung 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 gung. That's still like not really canon in the metal vocabulary, or like the foot patterns he does and all that sort of shit. And so not so much on Trendkill, but the atmosphere and everything and the way that the drums carry everything, I feel like is still really incredible. But on this, it's just like, you know, and that might just be like what you're saying about like so much of it depends on where you were at the time. And so for Vinny to not continue raising the bar felt like a disappointment to me. But then at the same time, it does sort of like really shine the light on those guys that do continue to do that. Like the drummers that keep people going to the shed, like George Coleus or like Thomas Hake and whatnot, that are like for like a decade plus are able to keep people like, bet you can't play this, you know? And so like it's all like, you know, man, it sucks, man, because like I play drums because of Vinny fucking Paul. Like that's why I play drums, is because of being 13, 12 years old and seeing him play live and building, fuck, that's it, you know? So I don't want to like shit on the dude, but at the same time I can like acknowledge that like there's a certain aspect of like he stopped pushing the envelope by the time that he got to here, and it was just like, well, I'm just gonna like, you know, I'm just going to play some slick stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not what I was there for, you know?
I mean, I kind of feel the same way about the guitar playing.
Yeah.
And honestly, less about the playing, more about the production. So I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like Dime's guitar tone was not on this album anywhere.
It wasn't. I mean, it was because it had mids. Like I like it. I like his scooped sound, obviously, a lot. Like I'm Broken. I still think I'm Broken is the quintessential Pantera song in every way to me.
I won't disagree.
I'm not gonna disagree. We got together and jammed that song a few years ago. It was so fun.
God damn it. But like, and so that to me is like, from a tone and everything, is like that's Dime. And I agree that Reinventing is not Dime, but I like the way it sounds. I think it sounds good.
Okay.
Objectively, but I don't think it sounds like Dime.
Okay.
And it was cool to hear him with like a more like midsy sounding tone, because it brought out things in his playing that would get lost, I think, in this when you remove the mids, because you literally lose harmonic content when you take away like the mid range of the sound. So I think there are little things that like kind of come out with this, but again, it's not a Dime tone though. I agree.
These are very fair points, I feel, you know, and this is why we needed Harrison for this episode, because without you, this would have just been just
a shit fest.
Reinventing the shit.
Like it's objectively their worst album, and I don't think anyone could disagree with that. I mean, in my opinion.
I mean, and that's what's so like frustrating about it, because it's like if I like orient myself in a certain perspective, I'm like, this is more consistent than Vulgar. Like I can like
it is more consistent, but it's consistently worse, you know.
Yeah, like it's almost hard. It's almost hard for me to say that. It's obviously objectively the worst album, because it's so subjectively their worst album to me.
And
yeah, you know what I mean?
Right. I can't separate. Yeah.
Like fuck, why can't I see it that way?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like I don't.
Here's another dimension maybe that's coloring my perception of it, subjectively. I think I was still on my linear, aggressive, extreme metal bent.
Yeah.
And although you could probably argue, I mean, this is just like the sense that I have. If I actually went back and like actually listened to all their songs and tried to apply that my historical thinking about extreme metal or whatever onto this, maybe it wouldn't be the case. But I feel like Trendkill is probably their most extreme album.
I would agree.
Like from a whatever. But there are things on this album that are superficially like a couple parts on Hellbound and a couple of other things that are like superficially very extreme sounding.
Totally.
And I think for me, I was like really receptive to that still. I was still like, oh, fuck. Like I was like, that's fucking badass. You know, like that's cool. Superficially.
There are parts on this where they just like let loose.
Yeah.
Or they just like do something so extreme, I guess is the only way to describe it. Like they do something so much in some direction.
Yeah.
That they hadn't done before necessarily.
Because like that riff on Hellbound is very simplistic, and I think to me that's and it's very simplistic. It's like that's like barely Pantera, but it's Pantera doing a non-Pantera thing, which sounds fucking cool. And then Phil's fucking screeching over that, and so I'm like, this is cool. I dig this. If this wasn't Pantera, I'd be like, this is a badass fucking album.
Right.
So, did we give our song?
Not really, man. Yeah. So
did we have songs?
kind of.
I did eventually get songs.
Yeah, like I almost like was
very
like,
hard.
this isn't really like 3 essential. This is 3 tolerable.
That's where I
that I
landed.
want to immediately turn off. And
That's
go
where I
listen
landed
to Far
too.
Beyond Driven.
Yeah. So
So
I mean,
I will say that before I even listened to these albums again, I automatically on my list put Revolution Is My Name, but it did not make my top 3.
me neither.
Interesting.
Dude, fuck that song.
Because I was like, I listened to it again. I was like, I know that I love playing this song, but this song's fucking lame, dude.
I'm a real snooty elitist asshole about triplet shit. And so like I'm real picky about triplet shit. So and you keep Revolution my name. I'd rather hear it than Uplift, but
Okay, well, so Uplift is on my list because it does some interesting shit. At least,
you know, man, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, that kind of became my criteria for this album. Was like, what is going on here that is interesting?
So okay, so what are your trash tracks? What is the worst? What's the bottom of the barrel on this album for you?
I couldn't pick one. I had to pick 2. I picked Death Rattle and We'll Grind That Axe.
Yeah, I would probably go. I would probably pick the same. Leaning towards We'll Grind That Axe.
Yeah.
I think there's a cool riff on it. Like again,
There was a cool riff on all these songs,
like,
really.
And when I was when Richard had asked me to like do a similar ranking for the other albums,
Yeah.
and I was like trying to pick the trash songs, I was like, oh, but this has a really badass riff on it,
Right? It was.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Right. I was torn between my trash. At first, I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be, belong to it. Like that's gonna be the one that I'm gonna put in the fucking garbage."
Yeah.
Again, triplet shit. But then like gotta belong
to it.
fuck that. But then but the bridge is pretty neat, and then it got back to Uplift, and I was like, I remember how much this song fucking sucks. Uplift, like I want head first into traffic.
Oh yeah.
Just to tell them what I'll do.
Yeah.
Like
It's like, oh god, no. And it's like this other thing on Trip is like you hear like just the drums, and this is the only time you've heard just drum and vocals, and it's like, is that really how bad the drums fucking sound on these records? Is that the terrible drum sound that you need to work with Dime's fucking guitar tone? Is that really it? Oh.
Yeah, because it feels like they really thought they had something to say with that part. Like we're just
I
gonna
really thought they did something.
we're like I hate to say that, but like it feels like they wanted to strip it down that far where it's just like just drums and fucking the lyrics are gonna shine. The lyrics are gonna carry this part, and boy did they not do that.
That's a good point.
It's not good, but it was one of my top 3 keepers. So I don't know what that means.
Wait,
exactly.
that was not your trash? Yeah.
No.
What would you throw the fuck away? You said it already.
I said Death Rattle and We'll Grind That Axe.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
Because they were like egregiously like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah. There's some cool drum shit and We'll Grind
There
That
is.
Axe.
There
And
sure
so
is.
That was like, that almost made my essential one. So another one of my essential ones. So I put Hellbound.
So did I.
Put Yesterday.
Mhm.
I think Yesterday was one of the tracks that they kept in their live set for this,
There's some cool stuff in there.
And there's like that wicked ass drum fill.
That I think Yesterday Don't Mean Shit is one of my favorite Pantera songs.
It might be.
Damn.
I fucking love that song.
Damn,
That
okay.
riff.
yeah.
Like that's
Sure.
and that's pretty almost kind of a classic Pantera riff. Like I could see that being on one of their earlier albums.
It might be the best song.
It's
on the
maybe the
record.
closest thing to like Pantera that they sound on this,
Yeah,
in my
okay,
opinion.
Okay.
I think there's an argument that it's the best song on the record. Hellbound is cool, but it's more of a novelty.
Yeah, agreed.
It is more of a novelty.
It's like cool to hear them just go all out, but it's very much doesn't really sound like them.
Yeah. But I think the best songs on the record are Yesterday and I'll Cast a Shadow.
So that was my third one to keep. And I think that's the best one of the album.
My two.
I actually really liked It Makes Them Disappear because I felt like they were. I felt like hear me out.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I felt like that. We were talking earlier about like
the reaction.
we were talking earlier about like this could have been a transitional album, and I swear to God that like. Yeah, and they had other. I feel like they had other inklings of this in their earlier catalog, but I feel like they could have gone down a path that was more doomy and a little bit more like slow and like doomer stoner type stuff, like maybe kind of like Down or whatever.
Like Down, yeah.
It would have been kind of cool to see them pull that thread a little more. And I feel like that was a small hint at what they might have been able
So
to do.
have y'all listened? So this Pantera record stands in stark contrast to the other Pantera records in the sense that they had actual leftover tracks for it that showed up on soundtracks.
Oh,
Have y'all listened to the track "Avoid the Light"?
Oh, that sounds.
I don't think so.
Familiar.
So that track. If that track would have been on this record, it probably would have been one of my favorite ones.
What was it on?
I think it was on like a Dracula soundtrack or some shit like that.
Okay.
But it is so it's different. And it's almost like uh-oh. Did I just like call an emergency?
So 911? Yeah.
SOS. That's embarrassing. I feel like a boomer.
Well,
I feel like I've heard this at some point.
But anyway, I'm not gonna like do that. But y'all should go and fucking listen to that because it's interesting. It's different. And lyrically, it's more fantastical. It's more like Cowboys from Hell. You know what I mean? It's more of a throwback to that, and it's really enjoyable to listen to. I don't know. It's interesting because I think that like that is an aspect of it for me personally. That it's like, all right, I want to hear Pantera do some shit that I haven't heard them do before, and I want to hear, I want to hear like I either want to hear fantastical lyrics that it's like, yeah, this is clearly a story. I don't need your heart to be in this. This is a goddamn story about medicine men and souls in a box and vampires or whatever the fuck.
yes.
Or I want to hear you talk about like your fucking like drug addiction. And you want to kill yourself and your daddy touched you or whatever it was. Like
I need to hear this.
and I don't want anything in between. I don't want like, trusty is whiskey and weed and Slayer. Like I mean, that's fine. That's fine. But I mean, that's actually the better lyrics on this record. I'm not going to shit on that.
Yeah,
But,
you're right.
but just me personally, because lyrics are such an important part of how I experience the music,
Yeah.
I'm not at all against Pantera doing things they haven't done before. I'm all for Pantera doing new shit.
Right.
It just seems like they didn't want to really do this.
And like that's what's so weird about this record. Is like, how does it feel like so different than what they've done, but still so
because it objectively is different from everything they've done in so many different ways.
But how does it feel so like conservative and so like non-risk taking and so safe at the same time?
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like they said, here's the fucking direction we're gonna go now. It feels like they said, well, here's what I don't know. We can do this, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It did feel like a subtraction of things, rather than like a shifting or changing. They just removed anything that was like made them kind of edgy almost, and then they maybe replaced it with superficially edgy things. I don't know, like more whammy pedal or whatever.
Maybe like the whammy pedal is such a weird thing for Dime's playing because he's done it since I think he started it on Far Beyond, but it was used to like really interesting effect there, and here it's just like I'm trying to think of where it showed up on Trendkill. I know it did somewhere, but I can't remember where. But like Becoming on Far Beyond, it's bum bum bam, and there are a few different places on there, but on here it's just like. I'm going to do a thing, and here's the whammy pedal. I don't know.
What was it that, so, like a few weeks ago, you're not on the FB, but Harrison was like, yeah, thinking about like rank Pantera albums. And what was it that that James said? He was like Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar.
Oh, everything else. Oh, I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
It was
definitely a
something-
hot take alert.
It was something to the effect of like Cowboys from Hell, like because Harrison put out like a hey, like here's my rankings of Pantera albums. What do y'all think? You know?
Yeah.
And someone was like, Cowboys and Vulgar are all that matter. Everything after that is just pure cringe pushed through a Digitech pedal.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny.
And I was like, hot take Henry alert. Here you go.
Yeah, okay. Vulgar and Cowboys, everything else is just cringy bullshit that sounds like razor blades through Digitech.
Oh, there you go. I mean, but this is the thing. Like, I bet that dude, I bet he's just a little bit older than us.
Maybe, yeah.
Because for like, you know, like my buddy Shay, like a lot of people that are a little older than us, they talk about like when Cowboys from Hell hit and Vulgar hit, it became this template for like, oh shit, that's how fucking good records have to sound now.
Right.
And so it hit in a totally different way than it did for us, you know, because that's the thing too, is like we experienced the first 3 Pantera records almost all at one time, you know? And so anyway, but yeah, I don't have any more shit to throw at Reinventing the Steel. I think I threw all the shit I want to throw.
Yeah. I just don't think it's very interesting.
Yeah,
I just don't think it's a great Pantera album.
Right. And what I was saying to Harrison while you stepped out was like the big thing is that maybe this would have that's the big tragedy of it, is that we don't know what album they would have made after this.
I kind of wish they hadn't made this album.
I
Going
was
out on top.
I was thinking
I
about
mean,
so I had the
if
thought.
they had gone out with those last 2 tracks on 101 proof, like that would have been the fucking king.
Yeah, I
like,
had the thought of like making the joke of like, yeah, you know, it's such a shame that this live record is the last
last one.
thing that we heard of Pantera.
Anyway, good night, everyone.
I almost made that joke. So,
like listening to these 2 albums back to back, the contrast is so stark between these last 2 tracks and this album.
it really
Like
is.
this is so fucking good.
You know, it's really interesting because, like, I didn't really... there weren't a lot of people that I was jamming Pantera with and talking about Pantera with so much. That was kind of a late in life thing for me, was to, like, geek out on Pantera with people. And I think early on... I never really talked to anyone about Reinventing the Steel and like why I wasn't supposed to like it, you know. And like I think now I'm like concerned that I'm gonna go back and listen to it and be like, oh fuck, he's right. He's 100% right. This is dog
but
shit.
it's like there's so many layers to it, because in the other sense, it's like god damn it, like, and this hit me early on, you know. And I'm gonna unpack this at length and stuff, but like, Dimebag dying was a thing for me and for a lot of other people. And so in a certain sense, it's like I'm grateful for fucking anything. I'm grateful for any yeah, man, dude, give me the worst fucking record that he made.
Right.
I'm grateful to have anything. Give me all of it. You know? And so there's like that sense of it, but then there's also, you know, like the other perspective that I've spoken to at length here for the past hour or whatever, you know. And it's like, that's just the great tragedy of it. Like, there's the tragedy that, you know, like these 4 dudes were, man, like that candle was burning so hot for the, you know what I mean? For the first like 8 years of the fucking 90s,
Right.
that, you know, something was going to have to give. Because they were like sort of shouldered with like, hey, carry the entire fucking metal scene. Like the only unapologetically metal arena band. You know, because even Metallica wasn't unapologetically metal. You know, as much as I am a load apologist, you can't, like, you definitely can't say that Metallica was being unapologetically metal. And so that's the great tragedy of it, is that they weren't able to work out their inner conflict, and that we didn't get a 5th Pantera record. I mean, I'm sorry, a 6th Pantera record. And that we didn't get a Pantera reunion because Dime was murdered. You know?
Yep.
And that's the levels of tragedy to this.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, and like for as much as I can say, for as much as I keep saying and thinking like this is an objectively bad album, I can't realistically say that I'm like removing the subjectivity from that. I just can't do it because I have to compare this to the other Pantera albums, whether I
Right.
want to or not.
right,
I can't see it any other way.
right.
So it probably is, especially compared to like a lot of other albums out there. It's probably pretty good.
It's still probably better than like 90% of
I
albums.
just
that you
can't
heard.
see it that way.
Right, because our experience is so ingrained in those first four and the arc of those first four records.
Yeah.
And so for like that, for them to sort of like have a creative pivot or, you know, like backpedal, that's to me, that's the like sin. That's like the only sin an artist can commit is a creative backpedal in a sense. You know what I mean? You can only do it if you've doubled down for a decade, right? Like if Reload would have been a thrash record, Metallica would not have a career. But that they did like a thrashy record like a decade later, like with Death Magnetic or whatever, then it's okay, fine. But
Man, we should talk about Metallica at some point too.
we
my
gotta.
God.
We'll
Can't
go
even-
to. Well,
Yeah.
we definitely will.
Get Harrison back in here for that.
You know. It's like, all right, for this next episode on Metallica, what I have to say is
I have a theory about Metallica, not a theory, but like an observation about their three core, in my opinion, core albums. You know, Ride, Master, and Justice for All. That I would love to like explain on camera one day.
you got a short version as an outro?
Yeah, I mean, I'm positive I'm not the only person to make this observation, but those three albums they follow a formula, an extremely predictable formula in terms of the song list.
Yes. Right.
And specifically like the actual like position on the fretboard of the like key fourth song. They all literally are in the exact same position. But like it's the first song is the thrashy song with the little intro. The second song is the titular track. The third song is a song. The fourth song is like the like, you know, hit or not hit, but like the like epic song.
Yeah.
On Lightning, it's Fade to Black.
Fade to Black. And you're on
Yeah.
2 on the A, 4. I mean, I fucking can't read music, so pardon me.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, 2, 4, open.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you go to Master of Puppets, Sanitarium.
Yeah.
0, 2, 4,
Same
0,
shit. Same fucking position.
Same position.
Yep.
And then 1, 2, 4.
Nice.
So, and that's the fourth song every time.
We need to talk about this more.
And it just keeps going. And then you have like
You're right.
a little bit later the instrumental track, and then like
Right.
they're the exact. If
The
you like
instrumental
plotted
track-
them visually, they would just be like they would lay on top of each other.
But there are like 9 tracks on Injustice.
they're
for
not
All, right?
perfect. The formula isn't 100% predictable.
But the formula is predictable for Ride to Master. Like those albums are like
But
so
like the
close.
instrumental track is always second to last, I think.
Yep.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Orion, or Call of Cthulhu, Orion, and then To Live Is to Die, which he says a poem, but we'll call it.
It's
Sure.
fair enough. Yeah.
Sure, fair
But
enough.
anyway, yeah, I don't know. When I first learned that, I was like, oh, they just repeated it every time. But I mean, it was still amazing and my favorite albums of all time.
They found the winning formula and that it's
Exactly, yeah, literally.
So what do you prefer, Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets?
If you ask me right now, I would say probably Ride, actually.
I can't fucking answer that. No. What?
But I think for most of my life, it would have been Master.
I'm
probably the same, honestly. Yeah.
I'm firmly in the Ride the Lightning category. Just it was because I think it was because it was the first Metallica album that I got really into that felt really like it was mine. You know, and not because you heard all the songs from Black Album on the fucking radio, but not everyone was into Ride the Lightning.
Yeah.
And so, listening on my headphones to Ride the Lightning while my mom drove me and Chris up to band camp and when I was in junior high, like that, I felt like I had a special relationship with that record that I didn't feel like I had with Master of Puppets for whatever reason. So
Yeah, I can see that. Cool. Well, Let's not go down the Metallica rabbit hole just yet. Save that for another.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. I'm in my mind. All I'm doing is pitting Orion versus Cthulhu. And that's all that I'm doing.
Man,
Yeah.
There's no content. Like there's no
You can't. Yeah.
Battle of the Titans right there.
All right, man. I think that's it.
That's it.
I think we solved it.
Finally.
This is. Are you ready for this? Is the moment that Richard realizes how drunk he is.
Oh!